All right. Going to start our Selma City Council special meeting at this time. It is May 2nd, 2022 at 5 p.m. in the Selma City Council chambers. You can join us in person or via teleconference phone number 1301-715-8592. The webinar ID is 813-9813-4201. When on the phone, if you wish to address council during the public comment portion of the agenda, press star 9 to raise hand and we will select you from the meeting queue. Press star 6 to unmute and mute yourself. Would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Guerra.
Here.
Councilmember Mendoza Navarro. Here. Councilmember Trujillo.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Cho.
Here.
Mayor Robertson.
Here. Potential conflicts of interest. Any council member has a potential conflict of interest may now identify the item and recuse themselves from discussing and voting on the matter. Oral communications. At this time, any member of the public may address the City Council regarding any item on the special meeting agenda over which the council has jurisdiction. No action or discussion will be taken on any item not on the agenda. Issues raised will be referred to the city manager for review. Members of the public shall limit their remarks to 3 minutes. I will also add, since we have members of the public tonight, that to reduce the liability to the city, the people who address the council during oral communications, whether in person or on the phone or on Zoom, will be asked to address the council and not to address any city employees in particular. Thank you. Do we have any oral communications at this time? With that, we'll move on to our one and only item, which is a workshop item for the discussion and direction on council priorities and goals. City Manager.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and members of the council. I am going to share a PowerPoint presentation that I have prepared. If you could just bear with me for 1 second. So the purpose of this workshop is, as has happened in years prior, was to for staff to get an understanding of the mayor and the council's priorities for the upcoming fiscal year. As we're developing our budget for fiscal year 22-23, we want to know, have a good sense of what the council would like staff to establish as priorities to accomplish with the limited resources that the city of Selma has. Obviously, there are things within the budget that are operational in nature and that are necessary expenditures, but it's always helpful for us to know as we are developing this budget where the focus of that resource allocation process should be directed to. So what I was hoping to do is just show a couple of slides that just give a refresher both to the council and to the public about the goals and priorities that were set through last year's budget process, and then have a discussion or encourage council to have a discussion about whether any of those goals have changed or any of the priorities have changed, or if it's council's desire to keep them as they are. And if they have changed, how we should change our goals and our priorities to allocate our resources as effectively as possible for this coming fiscal year. So as you can see on the screen, last year's, well, actually the current year's goals and priorities have been public safety, infrastructure, economic and community development, community engagement / communication, and customer service. And this next slide shows for each council member where those priority areas were expressed for each council member and which specific goals. So we have everything ranging in terms of priority areas from public safety in red, economic and community development in green, community engagement and communication in yellow, customer service in orange, and infrastructure in white. And so for each council member, we have their top 5 selections under each of those categories, and those goal areas are specific goals that staff was instructed to pursue for the current fiscal year. And so what I also wanted to do is to go through each of those priority areas and talk about where we are in accomplishing those goals in the current fiscal year. And then we'll end with a discussion about whether we need to continue pursuing those same goals and priorities, or if we need to shift focus for this upcoming fiscal year. So I wanted to start with public safety because that was one of the highest priorities for the council in the current fiscal year. And the goals that were stated by all council members included the new fire station. And as you know, the status of that goal is that we've acquired the property at Huntsman and Thompson to be able to build that fire station. So we've made significant progress on that front. And now staff is planning to propose a budget for this upcoming year to be able to fund the design of that fire station. So we're keeping that process moving for that particular goal and priority. Another stated goal for public safety was to increase the staffing, and certainly keeping the minimum staffing levels, but also having a fully staffed police department and fire department was a stated goal. And I'm happy to report that we are very close on the police department side to having a fully staffed department. We have certainly some turnover that happens just naturally from people being recruited away by other larger agencies that are able to pay higher salaries, but we are working on that. We are working on a compensation study citywide to be able to reduce that turnover and retain our public safety employees especially. But we have currently 33 sworn officers, 38 which are budgeted. So we have an ongoing recruitment for those additional 5 positions. And some of those are due to internal promotions and things of that nature. We have, as you are aware, a vacant police chief position. So that recruitment began in earnest last Friday. And so that position is posted to the city's website, and we're continuing that recruitment to the end of May. And then we have 5 dispatchers currently on staff and 1 dispatch supervisor. And so, we have 5 dispatchers, and we are out for recruitment for an additional dispatcher and a supervisor. So we're nearly fully staffed on the dispatch side as well. For our fire department, we have 25 full-time positions filled on the fire division with 3 vacancies, and 2 of those vacancies are expected to be filled in May. So we'll technically only have 1 vacancy at the end of this month in the fire division. And then on the EMS division side, we have 1 vacant EMT position, but that position is actually being supported by per diem positions that fill in as needed. And so we do have 15 full-time positions allocated to the EMS division. So that's very well staffed. And I'd like to commend both Acting Chief Garza and Fire Chief Peterson for their roles in keeping that pipeline of recruits and candidates open so that we can fill these positions quickly as we get turnover for whatever reason. Some of those, again, in the fire department as well, we've had turnover or vacant positions because of promotions, internal promotions. And then another stated goal on the public safety priority area was a new gang unit. And so that was something that was not incorporated this year, or that was not implemented this year, because that was dismantled by the former chief of police, but staff is proposing to bring that back in a different form, which we will discuss in the upcoming budget sessions. So those were the status of our goals for the public safety priority area. On the infrastructure side, that was one of the, along with public safety, the highest priority for staff to pursue. And so we've made quite a bit of progress with that. We talked about earlier this year the Clarkson lift station, and how Clarkson, the fact that there's no capacity in that lift station, it's basically the bottleneck right now for development on the west side. And as you might recall, the council voted to allocate $3 million to upgrade that lift station. And so we're currently close to 50% done on the plans for the design of that lift station upgrade. We do expect to have that project completed by the end of the year, which will facilitate significant amounts of development on the west side. So we're making quite a bit of progress on that. And then staff is continuing to work with the iBank with regard to sewer infrastructure funding for the rest of the city, not just the west side. So we're looking at funding from iBank. And for those of you who might not be aware of what iBank is, it's the California Infrastructure and Economic Development Bank. It's an arm of the state of California that provides financing to public agencies for infrastructure and economic development purposes. And they provide financing at very favorable rates over long periods of time. And so we've been working with iBank staff, and they've almost completed the review of our financials, which have been resulted in really good feedback. And so we do expect to bring a resolution to be considered by council on May 16th after it's been reviewed and vetted by the city attorney. Certainly, any decisions to move forward with loan financing for this purpose will come to council for approval at a later time. The resolution that's going to be presented on May 16th or at a later date is more of a formality to allow us to move forward with the process. So all that to say that the iBank financing process is moving forward, and staff is working very closely with iBank staff. And we do, and just as a little bit of background, we do anticipate that once that funding is secured, that the 5 subdivisions that are currently planned will begin to build right away. We have about 4 multifamily projects, and I'll get into that in a little bit further in our presentation, that are just, going through the planning entitlement process, but by the time this infrastructure is in the ground, they'll be ready to build right away. And then the next goal and priority, the next goal under the infrastructure priority area is the repair of street signs and replacing wayfinding. And so because of our minimal staffing levels in the Public Works Department, our Public Works has found it difficult to keep up with repairing the signs. The folks that in the Public Works Department that would typically be responsible for that have been pulled to other areas like street sweeping and street maintenance and those kinds of things. So we're happy to report that our recruitment for maintenance workers in Public Works is going very well. And we recently extended 5 offers to candidates for maintenance workers. And I believe those have all been accepted, if I'm not mistaken. So we're making good progress on that. And once we have those positions staffed, then we'll be able to refocus on street signs if that is a goal that council desires to continue to pursue. On the economic and community development priority area, we had quite a few goals that were stated in the last fiscal year process. So I'll start with the business attraction with focus on quality job opportunities. The status of that, as many of you know, is that we've had several new businesses open in the current fiscal year, and there are more on the way in 22-23. In the current fiscal year, we've seen Ross open, Wingstop, Domino's, La Michoacana Ice Cream Shop, Chalillos downtown, the Walmart expansion, which is continuing, and mycarpark.com, which some of the council members attended not too long ago. So we're, and then later on in the meeting, you'll get to meet our new economic development analyst, who's going to be assisting with further business attraction and business development, both downtown and citywide. We also have a goal of achieving balanced housing, which includes senior, supportive, affordable, and market rate housing. And that those projects I mentioned before include currently 4 multifamily apartments, probably more at this point since I developed this presentation, and 5 single-family residential subdivisions currently in the pipeline for development, for entitlement, excuse me. We have another goal to clear up outstanding obstacles preventing economic growth. And I think it's been a well-documented obstacle. Infrastructure is basically the bottleneck that we have right now. We have over $1 trillion that was approved by the federal government for funding that's going to trickle down to the states and to the cities to build and to upgrade the nation's infrastructure. And certainly the City of Selma, working with our government affairs consultants, our grant writers, and other potential resources, are going to be able to leverage a lot of that funding and direct it to our needs. And then certainly staffing levels is important to maintain in order to keep our projects moving along without holding them back. The council approved $2 million from the ARPA funding to be able to support new positions, primarily in the planning and building sides, and also some on the administrative side as well. So we're continuing to conduct those recruitments to keep up with the activity in Selma. We have parks and ponding basins for new developments also that were stated as a goal. And those really will come as new development happens. And we look at each development to see where, the ponding basins, the retention basins are going to go. One of the things that was approved by council back in February, I believe, was an infrastructure plan, which included master planning for sewer, water, storm drain, broadband infrastructure. And so these parks and ponding basins and park infrastructure as well. So that's part of that goal area, which is in process. Community ambiance for downtown, we see that being as a big component of the bid, the business improvement district activities. Staff was not able to locate where that was budgeted for in the current fiscal year, but certainly we can revisit that in the current budget year to see if council still wants to pursue that. But I imagine that the downtown businesses would want to also incorporate that initiative as part of their bid. And so we'll assess that, as we move forward with that process. Then the downtown revitalization strategic plan, we did secure grant funding in the current fiscal year for that. And then as I mentioned before, our new economic development analyst will focus on the implementation of that strategic plan and how it integrates with the business improvement district. And then the development at Lincoln Park, the Veterans Park Plaza has been completed. There's still some additional improvements that I think are in the works, but by and large, I think that project has mostly been finished and it looks fantastic. We'll continue to work with the veterans to make further improvements to that as needed. And then completing a new park. So as you might recall, the council approved redirecting the grant funding from the Rockwell Pond site to the Thompson Avenue 10-acre park that's being donated by Giannis Construction, and that'll come up in an agenda item in our regular meeting tonight. We're still waiting from final approval from the state about shifting those funds to that 10-acre park, but we'll continue to keep you updated on that decision as we hear more. And then the community engagement and communication priority area, the goals for that particular area included funding the Selma Legacy Youth Center. And that is an item that is coming before you tonight with the MOU to be considered by council for approval. The Super 8 residents that were placed in Selma during COVID, the homeless individuals that resided there throughout the pandemic have, for the most part, been relocated. All but 4 residents were relocated, and the 4 that remained in Selma unhoused, it was at their own request because they refused to be relocated elsewhere. But for the most part, we were able to find shelter, alternate shelter for everyone else. And then the other goal under this stated priority area is youth centers and job training, VROP skill training. And as you know, the Boys and Girls Club and Legacy Youth Center funding was allocated for those purposes. And the Central Valley Training Center, our contract with California High-Speed Rail, which EDC is helping us to implement, is going very strong. And we recently graduated 14 students from that program for a total of about 74 graduates to date. I think that number is higher at this point, but quite a few students that have gone through that program and have been able to obtain skills to enter the workforce with well-paying jobs. And with regard to the customer service priority area, there were no specific goals that were set for the current fiscal year. But that if council desires to add specific goals for this year, we're certainly, staff is willing to pursue those. And then for the coming fiscal year, the discussion that I'm hoping that the council and the public can entertain is to decide whether those priorities should remain the same and whether the goals should remain the same or whether new goals should be set. And then staff will take that feedback based on that conversation and develop and move forward with our budget proposal with these priorities and goals in mind. And the upcoming budget workshops, which will be scheduled for later this month, will include proposed allocations within each priority area as determined by council. Be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Thank you. Thank you for that presentation, City Manager. Much appreciated. Thank you for your work on that. Does anyone on the council have anything they would like to say at this point before we ask for public comment? Okay, with that, we'll ask for public comment. Would anyone like to weigh in on goals and priorities for our city for the coming fiscal year, which starts July 1st, which will be here before we know it? That will bring it back to council. And maybe we could, I guess I could start with, will we be getting a email of that presentation, City Manager?
Absolutely.
Thank you for that. In terms of changes, I like those categories. I think that's, these are perennial issues that every city has, that our city has definitely. I appreciate seeing the progress on several of them. The public safety is, I think, our number one priority, and that's what I get from the people. Public safety, it's 75% of our budget. We have some very clearly defined goals in that, including the fire station. I'm hopeful that we can locate that funding this year, that we look for that, because it's definitely a safety issue to get that fire station. Chief has told us many times that the response time is a necessary item that we need to improve upon in our city. I appreciate hearing about PD and getting close to staffing on this. Hopefully we can keep moving forward with that. I appreciate the look for the body cams that will reduce the liability, I think, to the citizens as well as to the officers themselves. So that's a really worthwhile effort. And the effort on training. I mean, the last 2 years with COVID, everybody's just been trying to keep staffed, just keep it going. And something's got to give. And unfortunately, there hasn't been a lot of time for a lot of training. So hopefully that can come back as well. And I will stop here. I've got other things to say, but would any other council members like to pick it up from here and address any topics?
Yeah, I'd like to go next. Again, we all can see how long it takes to get progress, and of course, our infrastructure has always been an issue. And, people ask me all the time, Sarah, where's our mall? That was a big thing here in Selma several years ago. They were going to bring that mall here, but we lost it to Hanford. And that's something that, God willing, it will happen someday, hopefully. But again, without my first priority is public safety, just like we have that, because without public safety, we can't get the developers and the contractors and businesses to come. They're going to say, the first thing that's comes out of their mouth is going to say, what's your crime rate? We all know that. So public safety, providing the safety for our citizens, our children, is the number one priority. I think our priorities are right on. We do need that fire station, and that was progress in purchasing that land. So I think, that's a step forward, and we're going to keep moving. So again, we need housing, and I think city managers knows that I beat this to death, because we talk about this over and over, how we need housing. We need some more homes, and people want to move back to Selma, and we can't do that without building homes. So we have had some homes on 43, but we saw how quickly those went, so we got to move seriously on that. And then other things that, we've talked about too, and this is another issue or a desire from the citizens of Selma that want a sports complex, and they feel that the size of our city deserves one for all our children. And then, of course, we need the downtown revitalization. That's a big plus. We need to do that. In fact, we hear other cities doing it, breaking ground. They're revitalizing their downtown. Um, and we really need to move and step forward and get that going as well, so that we have a downtown that people want to appreciate. People want to shop here, want to go downtown and visit, you know. And let's see. Economic development, we always talked about businesses. Then again, we talked about the communities, customer service, providing best quality customer service. And I think that how we treat people, how we treat developers, how we treat, we talked about that, and hopefully, we are stepping ground and we're moving forward with that as well, because in the past we did hear, oh, I can't get a call back, or I can't even speak to anybody when I go over there, or I was treated poorly. Those are things we don't want to hear. And I'm glad that I could say for this year, we haven't heard any of that. So that's a plus. But other than that, I think those are my goals, and hasn't changed pretty much from the previous years. And someone else, another council member, go ahead.
Oh.
Excited to, go ahead.
No. Oh, wait, or you want? Want me to go? I'm also in agreement with the goals that we have. The only thing I'd like to see if we can, add to it, Fernando, is add some benchmarks to some of our categories, to saying, what our expectations are and where we're at, and the benchmarks, so we can come back as council and saying, hey, we've talked about this and we started talking about this date, where we at on this date, and seeing what we're doing and what we have to do, either with our legislators out there, with what, if we have to pony up and, look at things that, we have to invest ourselves. And I think one of the biggest things that this council did was, is actually bring up these categories and stayed focused. And I think one of the key words here is to be consistent, stay consistent on the goal that we're going to do. We'll be able to hammer it out. I think public safety is number one, but I also think that the fire station, probably with staff, I know that, Rob, you guys would agree to this, that, we can look at it as multi-year, and start budgeting this year and next year and the following year, and having that project actually self-funded by us. So, I'm interested to see you guys come up with a plan of saying, hey, we got these projects, and here's the benchmarks, and here's what we're doing, and here's the money we're gaining, and here's what we're going to be allocating to that project every year. And in regards to infrastructure, it's pretty we are in a very, very serious mode where we have to get this infrastructure. Our city, because of the four founders in the past, and we don't have to get into this, we probably walked away from it because we had a lot of concerns. So right now, this council is taking the helm and saying, hey, we're going to invest, all of us. And I really appreciate the fact that we're really doing something about it. And I want to echo what Councilman Guerra said in regards to downtown revitalization. Every city, we all know that every city needs a downtown so that they can be represented. So aside of that, I'm with you. I congratulate you guys for all the hard work and good things you guys have been doing. But I also think we need benchmarks, and I also think that we need to keep things at task and have a council brought up to speed of what's going on and things like that. Thank you.
I was going to echo actually what Councilmember Guerra and Councilmember Trujillo just mentioned about, there is a lot of movement. I do, hear a lot of positive things that, we're doing in Selma. One of the things that I've heard a lot is, and I continue to say too, because I know I said this, is we're the hub of the Central Valley. And so we are off of the 99, off of the 43. There's so many arteries that are connecting all of California. And so, the economic development is going to be huge for us to be able to pay for that public safety. Yes, we need to make sure that our numbers are down, but we also need to find where the money's coming from, because the public safety doesn't bring in money. So absolutely, economic and community development. One of the things that I'd like to see more in that area is more of the public and private partnerships. explore what's out there. I attended the 2020 housing conference for a lot of housing authorities recently. There's a lot of money out there. There's a lot of money for, a lot of housing. And I know a lot of people don't want affordable housing, but the income limits just came out for 2022. And in Fresno County, the median income, or just the median, what they use is 72,900. And that's pretty high, when you think about, wow, not to, and I don't have the numbers in front of me right now, but then going down to see what's a 30%, which is have your very low, which is at 50% of the of the 80%. And those numbers are pretty high. Those numbers, like I think about, my kids are, I have one of them that works in retail, and, just $1,000 a year for a person that's, again, working minimum wage, part-time. That's a lot. That's not a lot of money. And so thinking about how do we get our kids to move into something, that $20,000 is not a lot of money to find housing. So we need to be able to a young couple starting out. So those are the kind of things that I think that, again, going to private and public partnerships. I totally agree with the sports complex. That's one of the things that I keep hearing is, the coaches and everybody that I've talked, a lot of people that I've talked to they're like, I just want green grass. Like, I just need grass, but ultimately it's not just about what our needs are right now. It's really thinking about what the city needs overall and what's going to attract, more people to our city and our community. And again, bring that funding. So that's, I am 100% on, looking at something, bigger than just without those restrictions, hoping to not have to have those restrictions. And I'm not sure if it's here or where, but our waste management issues are really bad. I'm getting calls all the time. I'm getting text messages. They're not picking up my garbage. My whole neighborhood is not getting picked up, and my trash cans are not being repaired. So, those are issues I think that we also need to address. That. And then one other thing that I'd like to add, because we are in an election year, is the onboarding, for even if it's going to be, regardless of whether we have new council or if we have re-elections, I think onboarding is going to be really important. When I came on board, when Mayor, we had a great onboarding with the department heads. But I think we need to add the Brown Act trainings and then the rules for those.
Just a clarification, would you propose, Councilmember Mendoza-Navarro, for the waste management item to be a new goal within the customer service priority area, or a completely new, if the rest of the council agrees on that goal and priority area?
I think it could be in the customer service because we are, out to our customers. That would be, I think it would be great to put under the customer. Or communication, I think it's customer service and communication, because that was another issue that they're not answering their calls or they're not.
So there was a priority area of citizen engagement and communication, or community engagement / communication, and then the separate priority area of customer service. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I'm really, everything's going really well to me. I think our goals are set and we are going a direction and we actually are moving. I'm really happy about it. And I feel like our council actually are all on the same page on that. And that's really a neat thing also. So things are just moving, we finally reached a point that things are moving, our staff is working on what it takes. It's still going to take some time, of course, the money, is always the problem, but, there is money out there and they're working really hard to find it. So, I'm really happy that developers are coming back to Selma. They want to build here. And, we want to open arm for them. Like I say, all the surrounding cities are doing well. So it's our turn, okay? So it's Selma turn to grow. So that's what I say.
Thank you. Didn't exhaust my list there, so heard some great things. I talked about public safety, and I would reiterate that because I just known and talked to so many people who've seen and experienced when public safety has not been there. And it's been really tough being part of downtown merchant, and to get, we had an issue where we were ripped off, and it was bad. You feel violated, and there was an issue with windows being broken, and then people having their cars broken into in their neighborhoods, for people going around and victimizing citizens. And a lot of this is unfortunately related to, the state and the decisions made at the state level regarding how long people are put in incarcerated for their crimes. But as a city, we can definitely have a no tolerance for crime, because it's the baseline of quality of life for our citizens, which it really comes down to in my opinion. One of the items, I don't know if we looked at, but I would like to discuss or broach, and it could fit into one of these categories, is continuity in our city. Change for change's sake gets old, and it is not something that can help our city in the long run. And that's where our city has been going recently. I think we need to take that bigger picture look and make sure that we keep an eye on continuity. We keep an eye on human resources and on staffing, because we have some pretty serious staffing challenges in our finance department, in our public works. We have issues there which can really lead into our quality of life as a city. And I think it comes down to human resources and staffing. I know the city's looking for another human resources person, but I would really say that the city should pay close attention to getting the right people for the right job. It's not quantity, it's quality. And the city, has to live within its means. I mean, as the city manager said earlier, we only have limited resources, and we have to do a lot with those limited resources. And one of that, and our biggest expense as a city is payroll. So we have to wisely spend that payroll and bring up the people who know what they're doing. I've seen cities that have thrown money. I'm not saying this is Selma, but cities that have thrown money at people just to get them to come in, and they don't stay here long. I think our city is more about bringing people in, teaching them what they do, getting them engaged with the community so the community knows them, and they come along and they become really synonymous with the positions that they occupy. I mean, some people may say, well, that's just a small town idea. Well, in that case, I like that small town idea. And I really like that about Selma, because it's more personal, and it's more about people being neighbors and knowing each other, and knowing who's working for their city, knowing who's policing, knowing who's cleaning up Veterans Park, knowing who's fighting their fires. I think that's an important point that I hope we keep in mind for the future, which is continuity of operations and finding positions, the right people for the right job, at the same time minding the finances of the city so that we live within our means and we continue to do the right thing financially, which it can be hard to do, especially when, all this money is getting thrown at the city in terms of the American Rescue Plan. And there are all these choices. And I agree with putting 3 million towards sewer infrastructure for Clarkson. That will open up that area. And that is one-time money or a really sore spot that is limited development. And we do need that development, that residential and that commercial. At the same time, putting the rest of it towards the payroll, I'm not in agreement with. I think we have to keep looking at finding other sources of income, talking to our grant writers and our lobbyists about getting these things, because a sports complex would really be a game changer for our city. This downtown revitalization that we started would be a game changer for the city. And I really appreciate having these categories that, Teresa Gallivan, the previous city manager, came up with and started having talks about, because I think it gives us a very useful way of thinking about this. I think it's important to have that respect for tradition and continuity. And I appreciate that being presented to us and us taking it to the next level and taking it even further. So thank you.
I have something to say. Also with the, I didn't check it on my list here. I'd like to incorporate when we start talking to our developers in regards to, I know we have the low, medium homes, but we need some higher rate homes too. So we can talk to our developers and see how we can get into that. I know that we got the low, mid range but the higher range homes, and speaking, in that. But in regards to total, everything the mayor had just spoken, we all have a different priority list. We need changes here. And the councils, and I think that our priorities are perfect. I think infrastructure is priority number one, along with safety. And we're proving it with a new police station. The officers, if we think back a couple of years ago, the officers couldn't even go into the police station because it was 80% of it had asbestos. And here we have a beautiful police station and the residents love it. And we had 120 people saying against the police station. I think that we, as a council, need to just look at what our priorities are and stick with them. I know that we're all going to have objections on some things, but we all still need to work together. So we can say what we want, and but at the end of the day, we're going to go back and go into the meeting and say, what this council wants as priorities. And this council is doing a great job, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Anybody else have anything they'd like to say? All right, we've got some new people that have walked in. Would anybody like to come up and talk about city priorities and goals? All right, with that, we'll bring it back to council, and we'll again say thank you to our city manager for a really good presentation, very thought-provoking, very timely. I'm sure lots of good things will come to us after this, so let's make this a work in progress. And I know we'll have budget talks to be able to come back and bring these topics up again. Very important. Okay, with that, do we have a motion for adjournment?
Motion to
Okay.
adjourn?
All right, is there a second? Okay, do we need a roll call? Okay, and we will recommence our city council meeting at 6 o'clock for our regular meeting.
Thank you, Councilman Trujillo.
Okay, with that, we'll call the Selma City Council regular meeting to order. It is May 2nd, 2022, 6 p.m. in the Selma City Council chambers at 1710 Tucker Street, Selma, California. This meeting is being conducted consistent with AB 361 and Government Code Section 54953. This meeting will also be held remotely. Members of the public may access the meeting using the following information. Teleconference phone number 1-301-715-8592, and the webinar ID is 813-9813-4201. When on the phone, if you wish to address the council during the public comment portion of the agenda, press *9 to raise hand, and we will select you from the meeting queue. Press *6 to unmute and mute yourself. Tonight's invocation will be led by Pastor Gilberto Zapata Jr. of the Church of God. Welcome, Pastor. Right there at the podium.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we approach your throne tonight, God, and we thank you, God, for this opportunity to come together, God, as a city, Father. We just give you all the glory and all the praise, Father. Tonight we lift up our city council leaders, God, and we just ask, God, that you would just guide and strengthen them, Father, that you would give them guidance, Father, that you would give them the wisdom that they need to continue leading our city, Father God. We praise you and we give you all the glory and we give you all the thanks, God. We come together in unity under your Son, Christ Jesus, today, Father. We thank you, God, and we praise you and give you all the glory in everything that we do. In Jesus' name we pray.
Amen.
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 United States of America.
Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Guerra,
Here.
Councilmember Mendoza Navarro. Here. Councilmember Trujillo,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Cho.
Here.
Mayor Robertson.
Here. Potential conflicts of interest. Any council member has a potential conflict of interest may announce the item now and recuse themselves from discussing or voting on the matter. Oral communications. At this time, any member of the public may address the city council regarding any item over which the council has jurisdiction. No action or discussion will be taken on any item not on the agenda. Issues raised will be referred to the city manager for review. Members of the public shall limit their remarks to 3 minutes. In addition, in order to reduce the city's liability, speakers are, of course, allowed to exercise their First Amendment rights. However, they must address the council and not any specific employee during their comments. Thank you for your understanding. At this time, does anyone have any oral communications that they would like to make? Come on up, sir.
Hi, good evening, Mayor, City Council, City of Selma staff. My name is Stuart Skogland. I am the Operations Manager for California Water Service here in Selma. Wanted to bring to your attention a couple of water. Have a construction project that's going to be starting. 500 feet of new water. And errands. Also, there's a small also sent a letter out to all the customers. If they have any questions, they've been directed to call. The other thing I wanted to share is the month of May is Water Awareness Month. Cal Water is going to be hosting a water awareness festival coming up at the end of May. The city approved us to have that event on May 25th. It's a Wednesday evening from 4 to 7. It's going to be at the Lincoln Park. And we're also going to be mailing out mailers to all of our customers here in Selma. Everyone's invited to come out. It's free of charge. Having some tacos, snow cones, even trying to get the A&W root beer float truck to come down and serve up some root beer floats. face painting for the kids. We'll have a conservation booth there. Some other departments will be there as well. Also reached out to the police department. They're going to have a neighborhood watch booth there, and also plan on reaching out to the fire department as well. So it should be a fun evening, just, hanging out, getting to know Cal Water a little bit better and what we're all about, and really going to be hitting the conservation piece of it pretty hard. So welcome, everybody.
Thanks a lot, Stuart. Really appreciate it. Look forward to that event. And will you be putting notices of those events in folks' bills and on your website?
Yes, that's, we're gonna start mailing those out this week. One, a mailer out to every single customer in Selma.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. Anyone else?
Thank you very much. Mayor Scott Robertson, Selma City Council members, City Manager, Police Chief, Fire Chief. I won't take too much of your time. We're here to say big thanks to all the departments that helped us. Last Sunday, the 24th, held a Selma Sikh Parade. And it was a great event, and everyone was really, really happy. And we just wanted to come here and say, City of Selma, we wouldn't have been able to do it without the help of all the departments. The permitting department, City Council helping us with the fees, having a meeting with Police Chief, and really made our job really, really, easy. Generally we have 8 to 10 police officers that day. Garza, helped us with a couple, one leading the parade, one behind. So all those little things really meant great to the community. And we had approximately 8 to 10,000 people come all over the valley from Stockton to Bakersfield. And we were able to serve almost approximately 10,000 meals that day, vegetarian meals to the public. And it felt good. So we just want to say a big thanks to all the departments, especially the mayor's office, the city council. Thank you for joining us that day. And that meant a lot. So thank you again.
Thank you for the event. It went off really well. It was safe. You benefited so many in the community, and was a real example and a real inspiration for a community and a religious event that brought the community together. Thank you very much for that.
You're welcome. Thanks. Oh, my name is Harninder Gill, and
my name is Karnial Sender. I'm a treasurer at Allah Sikh Church, and Mr. Narendra is secretary. Thank you so much. This was such a big event. It wasn't easy for us without your help.
Thank you.
thank you.
We look forward to next year's. Anyone else have anything they'd like to say at this time?
Good evening. My name is Morgan Patterson, and kind of a bashful guy, but been a part of Selma for a long time, worked with the fire department for a few years, and I know some faces in the crowd. So this is kind of awkward, but I'm applying for a tattoo shop here in town. And my grandmother had a art gallery in Visalia for a number of years on Mooney Avenue. And
Want to speak in the mic?
I learned how to do art in her art gallery. She taught all kinds of college kids how to do art. And I get very passionate, and that's why I'm kind of a bashful, quiet guy. But people that know me know that I'm not. So this is pretty big. I've been doing tattoos in the area for years and seen a lot of my fellow firefighters, nurses that I worked with, sit down in front of me, and we had that moment, you know? And it was pretty big because that just really influenced me to continue on what I was doing because I always felt that it wasn't really looked upon as something positive. But I've always wanted that moment, and I'm looking for that in the city of Selma. And I'd kind of like some backing on some things because I was proposed it's $4,000 to apply. And that's kind of steep, but I'm willing to work hard and maybe come up with a payment plan or something. I like my location. I actually know the family who owns the building, and I would love to rent from them. And that's kind of who I am. And I'm kind of introducing myself, and it's kind of a big step for me because this is something that I get really emotional about. You see me, I'm amped up right now. When I see other people that I know and their struggles, and I get to connect to them, and they're like, oh, look at this tattoo that I got. I'm like, oh man, I come alive, you know, and I love art. So I always tell them, not always, but hey, that's really bad. Can I touch it up for you, you know, and use my artistic values to kind of make light on something that's a negative. And so that's who I am, and I'm introducing myself. I'd like to come to more council meetings now that I see some people in the crowd that I know. I hope you give me kind of a chance and push this a little bit forward because I'd like to make some magic happen in your city. Thank you.
Thanks, Morgan, and good luck with the application process with the city. Take care.
Thank you. Leslie Nelson, 2413 Country Club Lane. I again would like to say to Shane Farrell how much his working for the city as our public works director has meant to me and our family. And I just hope that we see him rise up again real soon. He deserves it. He's worked hard, and I'm just very saddened by this. So that's all I have to say. I love you, Shane.
Thank you. Anyone else have any input at this time?
Yeah, Don Nelson, 1058 Mill Street. I too am a big fan of Shane Farrell's. I've watched him grow up. Good student, good kid around the neighborhood. It's always been a pleasure to be around. From my knowledge, I don't think this city has had a better public works director. And I just can't believe what's happening to this young man. Somebody that's coming in, I understand it's none of you, it's the new city manager that has taken it upon himself to.
Please direct
the
it
one
to
that
us.
is.
No, just direct your comments to the council.
Well, I just hope he's listening. So anyway, as a lifelong member of this community, I think this is nuts. If you're gonna just put somebody down and promote him, demote him, why would anybody with their right mind give the next person a bonus, a pay raise without even proving himself? That tells me that somebody has an agenda. So I think we've had enough agendas. I think we've had enough agendas in this town. We're not going anywhere. Not going anywhere. So thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Patty Kelly, 1345 Almond Street. And I'm here too to let you know how much I appreciate Shane's dedication to this city and the pride that he takes in this city. I've had a couple instances that I've had to call public. They were immediately resolved. Now, as a retired HR director, there's a couple practices that I think could have been utilized here, and maybe they were. One of them, when a job description changes, quite often the person is grandfathered in. if they've been in the position and have been doing an adequate job. Second issue is regarding college degree, because I understand that's the issue here. It's very common to say college degree or equivalent. And with 19 years of experience and 2 years on the job, that certainly would meet equivalent. So, thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Good evening, Yolanda Torres, 2266 Mitchell Avenue. Um, You know, you all heard what I said last meeting, so I don't need to repeat myself, but I feel the same way. And first and foremost, to Shane, we're here. We love you. We're going to
Can you
support
direct your
you.
comments to
And we're
to
going to,
us, Ms.
I am,
Torres?
but I
Thank you.
want to look at somebody when I speak with them. I apologize. But anyway, Shane, I've known Shane for 20-some years. My kids grew up as little babies around Shane, and Shane has always been there for me and my family. And it's just horrible what, first and foremost, what the 3 city council members voted without even looking into anything further. Shane, I think, has proven himself, his loyalty to the community, staying on in public works, getting the demotion and taking it like a man, like the man that he is, a strong, hardworking man, family man, a community man. And, but the fight's not over. We're going to stay here. We're going to fight for Shane. We're going to actually, I want to request at the next meeting. I don't know who I need to email or who I need to request, but I want the qualifications of the city manager and other employees. If they're going to question Shane's qualifications, we need to question everybody's qualifications as well. I don't think it's fair that we point out someone who has proven himself to our community and just say someone's not qualified. Well, I believe there's certain other people. I'm addressing the council, but I don't believe our city manager is qualified to be where he's at. And so we want qualifications on certain people. Just let me know who I need to email, because we have a list of city employees that we want the qualifications for. And then also, for the record, we do have live streaming. The news media is on with us. I brought this to their attention because we need transparency. There's something going on here, and it's not fair that certain people are being targeted, but we're gonna go across the board and we're gonna just look at everybody and see who's qualified and who's not qualified. I just think that's the fair way to go. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. And the speaker can turn in, City Attorney Lerner, the speaker can turn in that request to the city attorney or the city clerk's office.
Right, I think, Fernando, you have a process for Public Records Act requests. So it goes to the clerk, Raina, and then we'll process it from there.
Okay.
Gurminder Dale, owner of G-San Car Wash, now 100% mobile. So I've seen what Shane's done, the improvements in the city. You guys all see it. You know, I've seen this gentleman stay after hours, 7, 8 o'clock. You know, what better person to be doing what he's doing who started from the bottom? Doesn't matter what he's done, what his qualifications are. He started from the bottom. And we're all told, give it all you have and it'll be rewarded. But what I feel is him getting demoted is a slap in the face. So he used to come to the car wash, everything going good. You know, you're a business, everything looks good. Whitson looks good, G. Yes, it does. Thank you for what you guys are doing. And they're a team. The whole city workers are a team. I haven't seen anybody take a break together as a team. So they're a team. And they respect this gentleman as their boss. That's all I'm going to say.
Thank you.
Hello, Council. Pastor Kealoha Ka'alei Lapono. of Christ Driven Assemblies of God Church, 1801 2nd Street. I would like to say, sorry, I'll address the council, mayor, that I love this brother right here. I'm not quite sure on everything that's going on other than what I've heard from the folks, but the demotion, I gotta say, I don't understand. Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Sorry. I must say I don't understand it, but this brother here has done so much good for the community. And since I met him when I was a young boy, he was always there. He ran to the call. He constantly was moving. It didn't matter how busy he was. When we asked for Shane, he was going, and he was there to help us at our church and support what we were doing. So I don't understand everything that's going on, but I must say I support my brother right here and support my brothers and sisters who are supporting him. God bless you and the Lord keep you. And God bless everyone in this room. But Shane is a good man. God bless.
Thank you.
Hello, pardon my emotion. My name is Heather Farrell, 2333 Burnham Drive and 10111 South Thompson Avenue, born and raised in Selma. Haven't been in this town for a while, haven't lived here for a while. However, I own a restaurant in Kingsburg, and on a weekly basis, I get phone calls or people walking into my restaurant just to commend me on having the brother that I happen to have, who happens to be Shane Farrell. We were born and raised in this town, my brother, my sister, and myself, by my father and my mom. My dad was a baseball coach from Pee Wees to Little League to Major League. Unfortunately, he passed away when we were in our early 20s. But my brother took the values that my dad instilled in us and applied it to this city. He doesn't have any kids. He's been with the same woman for a very, very long time. And he sacrifices on a daily basis for this city. He sacrifices his family and he sacrifices the people that he loves, and he puts the city above everybody else and everything else. And he has from day one. He's been in this, not position, but he's worked for the city for 19 years to my knowledge. And I have never, ever heard anybody say anything negative about him and the job he's done. He loves his town. He's extremely loyal to this town, more so than he is to his family and friends. And I'll be the first one to say that. This is my brother. He's 13 months older than me. We grew up very, very close to each other. And in the last 20 years, we haven't spent a lot of time together because we both have careers and we're both trying to work towards a good life. My brother does nothing but work hard for this city. He will drop anything and anybody to do anything to help somebody that calls. Never, ever said no to anybody. Anybody that needs him in this town, he is here for. And I can attest to that because he's missed a lot of family things because he has put this city before he's put anything else. And to demote him is wrong on every single level. Cronyism is wrong. Qualifications, if you want somebody who's qualified to keep this town in order, there it is. An engineering degree does not make somebody qualified to run the city. I believe this is a small, wonderful community. I've always loved it. Unfortunately, I haven't been here for 20 years or so because I made my home somewhere else. However, I love this town and I do support it, and I'm here all the time. As I said, I own a restaurant in Kingsburg. I'm here all the time. And I have people come into my restaurant, like I said, weekly since I've opened the restaurant 5 years ago, just to tell me how thankful they are that this gentleman is taking care of the city the way he is. And I don't think you'll ever, and I mean ever, find anybody who cares more about this city and keeping it clean and in order than my brother.
Thanks for your comments.
Council, my name is Pastor Marty Lynch, Ka'ole Lapono, 1801 2nd Street, Christ Driven Church. I also want to say how much Shane has been just an inspiration to us. What my son was saying is true. Every time there's something needed, and I know it goes with everybody in our community, that he's always right there. He's always, on the spot. If an engineering degree is what it takes to be in charge of this community, something's wrong, because this man has proved his worth. And so I just wanted to say that we support Shane's position, and whoever thought of this was without character. Whoever thought of this was not trustworthy and unloyal to the community. But that's another thing. On another area, I'd like to say to the council, thank you so much as a representative board member, bringing broken neighborhoods back to life. Thank you for the use of the park. Thank you for all that we were able to accomplish this week on Saturday with our event. It was a very successful event. Thank you to the City of Selma for all that they do and the things that Shane does and his department, and to each and every one of you. I want to say thank you. So it's kind of bittersweet, but we're very, very appreciative that all the city does with our events and things that we do. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
My name is Robert Cortez. I live at 1751 McCall. I look at this gentleman here that you're talking about as a very, very hard working man. He reminds me of my father in many, many, many ways. My father did not get the education that he needed, but I always saw my father as a very strong and hard working man to support his family. And this is how I see this gentleman, see, that will go out of his way to do things. And my father was the same way. He'd go out and try to do the same thing. So all I ask is the city council to at least try to reconsider, okay? That's all I'm asking. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jennifer Earl, 1327 Peach in Selma. I've worked with Shane in several capacities, the band festival, Selma Beautification, and the Smart Center, which is at the Salazar Center. I don't know many directors who give their phone number out and then answer it when you call, but Shane is one of those. He picks up trash on the weekends when we've left bags. He came to the Smart Center one morning because the alarm was going off for some reason, probably my fault for not punching the numbers in right. I really appreciate him. And I realize that the city manager has the right to make decisions like this, but I just want you to know that I really appreciate the job Shane has done.
Thank you for your comments. We have anyone on Zoom or on the phone who would like to comment at this time, City Clerk, for oral communications?
I do see we have one caller. Please use your raise your hand feature and we will select you from the meeting queue. Mayor Robertson, at this time, I see no hands raised.
Okay, but that will bring it back. If there's no one else who would like to weigh in on oral communications at this time, we do have someone who would.
Joan Nelson, 1058 Mill Street. I'm here. for the-
Mayor, did Ms. Nelson already speak? Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I got her confused with another
Oh,
speaker.
sorry.
I
Joan-
apologize.
Joan Nelson, 1058 Mill Street. I'm here again in support of Shane. I've been here for the last 3 meetings, asking you to change your mind on this bad decision. I've watched this young man grow up. I've watched him work his butt off for us, and I think it's time to stop this madness. I'm asking all of you, and especially the city manager, to change this vote. And we love Shane.
Letitia Gallardo, 1349 Sarah Street. I don't know what makes a person more qualified than someone that I knew a long time ago that I used to see on the street. Before he even started in this working for the city, he'd say, man, Led, I can't wait till if I can ever get on with the city. I'm gonna clean all this up. I'm gonna make this city look great. You know, if that doesn't make you more qualified, I mean, he works hard. One of the hardest workers here in this city. Okay. I mean, every time we needed him for anything, and he's there. He's been there. I always see him out working hard, giving back to this city. It's a lot of work when you give your time to the city. And he does an exceptional job. Great person. I graduated with him. And like I said, I remember before he even got on with the city, all he ever wanted to do was work for the city. I'm hoping I can get on one day to make the city look better. So think about that. Reconsider the decisions that you're making. You're hurting people here. Remember that. Okay, this is our city too. We live here. I've lived here for 50 years. Okay, and I too love Shane. I have heart for him. People who work hard for this city. So reconsider your decision. Don't treat people that way. He's a good man. He's a good employee. Just remember that.
Name's Tim Erickson. I work for California Water Service, 2042 2nd Street. We've had a great relationship with Shane on meeting up and getting things done. A lot of times, sometimes you just need another set of eyes, and he can text me something I need to go check, or I'll text him something he can look at when he gets to it. But it's been, we've had a lot of communication. I mean, he was even here last Sunday while I was working. So, I think you better get someone to answer the 2215 phone number so we can get Barton a voicemail on Public Works if you're gonna demote him. Thank you.
Anybody else?
This one. Chris Brow, 3049 Love Street. I didn't plan on stand up here and talk today. I think for the city manager, I mean, I'm not mad at you.
Can you look at,
Okay.
keep it on the
I
city
didn't
council?
realize
Thank
it.
you. Appreciate
Okay.
that. To address the city council,
I didn't realize the city manager, you know, I'm not mad at the city manager. I know he's also has a job to do. I think with the people talking, kind of gives a little foundation of Shane and what he means to this community. I've been in law enforcement coming up on 30 years, and I've worked for a lot of different supervisors. Some were highly educated, some had a high school diploma, and that really truly didn't dictate what type of supervisor and what they meant to our department. And so I can honestly say that when we've had several city managers, we've had several police chiefs, getting rid of people, starting all over again, in my opinion, is not the right thing. I know for a fact because I know Shane. I've known him my whole life. I almost was going to read a text, but I'll just paraphrase his text to me. He didn't say one bad word about any of you. He didn't say anything bad about the city manager. What he said was, he said that he loves Selma, and he's not going to go anywhere. And quite frankly, for me, it's frustrating because when I look at Selma, we've kind of lost our moral compass a little bit more. Then you go, and really truly, I hate to say this, and this hurts because I grew up here. I played sports here. I represented Selma in college playing sports. And all you have to do is go to a high school football game and sit in the stands and see that moral compass is eroding here. And it's not, I hear this a lot that it's a California thing. Well, that's not true. You can go 5 miles north in Fowler. You can go 5 miles south in Kingsburg and see that it's a problem here in Selma. That hurts the people that have grown up here. And to see someone like Shane, what I told Shane, I said, Shane, take your experience and go somewhere else. And he told me no. And that's when he told me he loves Selma. So I want to let the council, which I think you guys already know who he is, but I also want to let the city manager know a little bit. You got a company guy that is loyal to this city and that would do anything at all for him. So that's all I got.
Thank you.
Ten 57 Mill Street, Rose Robertson. I just want to say the day he was promoted here, I'll never forget. Again, his family was here in support of him. He's a great worker, works hard, helps everybody, stays out of the political arena. He just wants to help everybody, keeps our streets and our city clean with his team. And I like to say that, you know, when he was promoted, then not only the entire city of Selma was proud, the council here was proud. We all stood up. The entire city council stood up minus one person. But let's just make it very clear. When we get good workers, I don't understand what it is that when you're connecting with the community and you're doing your job, it's almost your next, you know, it's not a good thing. And I just don't understand. But I hope you reconsider what's happening to some good workers here and take that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that's the end of oral communications. I thank everyone for their input. And we will now move on to our special presentations. The first one is a Walmart donation presentation. Our Parks and Community Services Director, Mike Kirschner, will be presented with this.
Mayor Robertson, members of the City Council, since I started here many, many years ago, Walmart has had a community fund and the city of Selma has been very successful. There was a few years when they kind of changed their grant process, but I'm happy to report that over the last 5 years, the community fund has donated $5,000 to various departments. And we have a team effort here where all departments sit down and kind of figure out where the money is going. And I know last year was through the parks at Peter Ringo, and they also put the second pool table at the senior center. So now a big thank you to Karen Foster right there, who put us in contact with the new Walmart manager, Fernando Fernandez, which is here. And I'd like to call both chiefs and they can explain the funding, but they are here to present $5,000 to public safety tonight.
Great, thank you. Come forward, chiefs.
Hello, City Council, Council. Just want to say thank you for everything you guys been doing for the city. Fire Department, I really appreciate you guys, and the Police Department as well too. I think you guys do an amazing job here. I've been with Walmart for 24 years and probably been about 10 cities, and this is probably one of the tight net community involvement and with the Fire Department and Police Department. So I just want to say thank you for everything you guys been doing and keeping us safe. And Selma Walmart's been here for ever. We're just here to support you guys too as well. So if we're doing anything wrong, you let us know too as well. Okay, thank you.
That's good, thank you. Did you want to come up in front of the city council and present it to the chiefs, and we'll stand and get a picture? Dan, city council. Right. Thanks to Fernando and Walmart for their generosity for our public safety. Okay, our next special presentation is our finance third quarter update presentation.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. This is the third quarter of fiscal year 2021-22 financial report. The city's financial plan is an annual budget, which is an estimation of what actual operating revenues and expenditures will be. On a quarterly basis, the city reviews the actual activity and compares it to budgets to ensure that actual experience is on track with budget projections. Next, please. So tonight we're going to look at the primary operating funds of the city. These are the general fund, Measure S, and the enterprise funds. This report's going to contain a whole lot of numbers, and I'm not going to read every number to you, but what I'm going to do is we look at each of the funds as I'm going to hit the highlights of those funds. Everything so far this year through March 31st is tracking as we expected it to. Next. So let's look at general fund revenues. With 75% of the year passed, we would anticipate that we would have collected approximately 75% of the revenues in each budget category. Property taxes and franchise fees are primarily received in April and June. And so those numbers are going to run a little bit lower than your 75%. In the fourth quarter of the year, that's the April to June period, staff will analyze the the general fund revenues that have been actually come in to see how we're going to look when we get to the end of the fiscal year. And what I found in my preliminary looks is that some of our general fund revenues are going to come in slightly less than what we had anticipated when we developed the budget. Some of our revenues in the general fund are going to come in slightly higher than what we had anticipated when we developed the budget. It's my belief that we're probably going to come out in total in general fund revenues right about where we had budgeted. I will have more information later. We've just begun that analysis. On expenditures, you see that the administration department there includes city council, city attorney, city manager, city clerk, human resources, economic development, and finance. The other departments are self-explanatory. With 75% of the year passed, the amount spent should be roughly 75%. Many of these departments are coming in under budget, and that is primarily due to staffing vacancies. When the positions are filled, we can expect that actual department expenditures will run close to budget projections. So let's move on, please. So in total, the general fund budget is 17.1 million revenues. Expenditures are the same. It is a balanced budget. The actual revenues to date are 11.0 million. The variance is 6.0 million. 64.6% of the overall budget has been received to date. On the expenditure side, the actual receipts to date are 11.5 million. It's a variance of 5.5 million. 67.7% of the overall budget has been expended to date. Now, if we look at that, if we look at our actual net position, we take our actual revenues received less our actual expenditures, and we find that we have, as of the 31st of March, a net deficit of 535,000. However, when you think about it, that's really not indicative of where we're going to end the year, because as we talked about when we were looking at general fund revenues, property taxes and franchise fees, which are major revenues of the general fund, don't come in until April and June. So while it's interesting to see what the net deficit is at this point, I want you to bear in mind that that is not indicative of where we will end the year. We'll look at special funds, particularly the Measure S fund. And the rest of these funds that we look at will all be in the same sort of format as what you saw in the general fund there. So on the Measure S fund, our revenues budget was 2.2, the actual is 1.5, the variance is about 644,000. 70.8% of overall budget is received thus far. The thing to remember about Measure S is that it's a sales tax revenue. Sales tax receipts typically run 2 to 3 months behind in the year. So as of March 31st, that 1.5 is only representative of 7 months of sales tax revenues, when actually March 31st is 9 months. So at this point of the year, when we see that number running behind, it's to be expected and not an issue for concern at all. And once again, you can see with the expenditures, that leaves us with a net surplus of 254,000. Again, it's not necessarily indicative of where we'll end the year. We'll probably end the year very close to netting to, balance revenues and expenditures being equal. So next we'll look at the enterprise funds, and enterprise funds are those that operate more like a business than the governmental funds. The ambulance fund, revenues from the IGT program are usually received only every 6 months. And again, when we look at the net position, that's really not indicative of where we will end the year. Included in that net deficit there of 648,000 is 554,000. That was the land purchase, I believe, for the new fire station. And also here in this fund, I would expect us to end the year fairly balanced revenues and expenditures. The Pioneer Fund, same thing. The thing to note here is that the rental revenues are increasing now that it's open, I believe. And what's happening when you see on the revenue side, our budget was 28,000. And as of March 31st, we received 38,000, which means that when we developed this budget to begin with, we weren't really sure where we were going to land with the pandemic and COVID and whether and when we would be able to open up fully again. And so we budgeted our revenues very conservatively. And as it turns out, as of March 31st, we received 137% of the overall revenue budgets. On the expenditure side, the expenditures are coming in right about 75% of the year. And again, the net deficit, remember, is not necessarily indicative of where we'll be at the end of the year. Transit Service Fund.
There shouldn't be a deficit,
Pardon me?
right? That's just a spreadsheet count problem, right? 'Cause there's
Yes,
no deficit
exactly.
in Pioneer Village, there's actually a surplus, right? Because your expenditures are lower and your receipts are higher.
Well, we're talking about our actual to date. So our actual revenues were 38,000 and our actual expenditures were 58. So the expenditures exceeded the revenues. If we're looking just at the actual lines rather than the budget lines.
Okay, I was looking at revenues compared to expenditures, but. Okay.
Yeah. If we're looking at the total the variance amount, then yes, you're correct. Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you.
Transit Fund. Revenues are slightly higher than at 82%. They're slightly higher than the percentage of 75. And expenditures are slightly lower, leaving us with a net surplus. And once again, I'm talking only about the actual lines rather than the sum of the variance. And then on the garbage fund, and this fund is really tracking right along where we would expect it to. That fund stays fairly stable and revenues and expenses are generally very even throughout the year. The Cultural Arts Fund. Revenues were budgeted to account for the possibility, again, of further COVID closures, but we're now reopened and revenues are coming in closer to expenditures. See, so far this year, let's run through these numbers just for a minute. The budget was 136,000 on revenues. The actual as of March 31st is 127,000. And the variance there is only 8,000. And which leaves us with a 93.3% of the budget already received as of the end of March. So it is very likely that in the last 4 months, we will go over 100% of budget received in this fund. Again, I believe the intention was to budget the revenues conservatively when we didn't really know what was going to happen with the pandemic. On the expenditure side, the budget was 189,000. The actual today is 139, with a variance of roughly 50,000 so far. 73.3% of the budget has been expended thus far. So the deficit there is the difference between the actual 127,000 and the actual 139. Again, that is likely to be a different number by the time we get to the end of the year. I would anticipate, just looking at that, that it's going to probably come out fairly even, would be my guess at this point. Do you have any questions for me?
Does council have any questions at this time? Anyone here tonight from the public have any questions? And you are joining us from RSG. Are you going to be our permanent finance director, or are you our temporary finance
No,
director?
I'm a temporary city employee. I'm a special projects manager. I'm a retired annuitant, and I'm really going to only be here to try and transition you to your regular finance director. Hopefully you'll get one soon.
And this is your second time because you were here earlier in the
I
year
was here
too,
last
right?
fall. That's correct.
Thank you. Thank you for your work. Really
You're
appreciate it. Okay, that will conclude tonight's special presentations. And with that, we'll move on to the consent calendar. All items listed under the consent calendar category are considered routine. The complete consent calendar will be enacted by one motion by roll call vote. For purposes of discussion, any council member may have an item removed from the consent calendar and made part of the regular agenda. The council can then approve the remainder of the consent calendar. Do any council members have any items they would like to remove from the consent calendar tonight?
I'd like to remove item C.
I'd like to remove item B. Is there a motion to approve item 1A of the consent calendar?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Guerra,
Yes.
Councilmember Mendoza Navarro, Councilmember Trujillo,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Cho,
Yes.
Mayor Robertson.
Yes. Page 5, this is the MOU for the Selma Youth Legacy Center that the council approved a year ago or at the last budget. So it's been a while since we've seen it. Can you refresh us a little bit on what's going on here?
Yes, absolutely. As you might recall, in the last budget adoption, the council adopted a budget which included funding for both the Boys and Girls Club and the Legacy Youth Center, subject to the development of an MOU that the city would enter with both of these organizations. The Boys and Girls Club MOU was finalized a couple of months ago, and that funding was released at that time. And the Legacy Youth Center was working on making revisions to their budget to be able to accommodate the improvements that are needed so that the Legacy Youth Center can open up. And some of the improvements were related to a CUP, a conditional use permit that was issued to Legacy Youth Center for improvements at the, which one of the requirements of that CUP was improvements to the parking lot and a trash enclosure. And so the funding would go towards, if approved, if this MOU is adopted, would go towards those improvements, and then they would be able to open up and have programming at that facility. And as I mentioned in the staff report, the Legacy Youth Center is operating under the Antioquia Ministries organization.
And with this, this funding, will the Legacy Youth Center be looking to have actual kids coming in, actual clients coming in pretty soon after the renovations get done?
My understanding is that the funding would go towards the improvements, and then with the next budget cycle, they would request additional funding along with the Boys and Girls Club to actually provide the programming in the next fiscal year, is my understanding.
For 2022, 2023?
Correct.
Okay, thank you for that. Anyone else have any questions regarding this item?
I have just a quick question. Can someone elaborate in regards to the amount of 40,000 for the parking lot modification and trash enclosure?
Yeah, what specifically would you like
I'm just looking
elaboration
at
on?
the items that were listed for the Legacy Youth Center. and they're stating that 40,000 needs to go to the parking lot modification and trash enclosure.
Sure. So as I mentioned earlier, the conditional use permit required improvements to the site, particularly with regard to ADA accessibility. So Americans with Disability Act accessibility, which is required for any facility, in particular with the facility that's open to the community, to the public. And so most of the funding would go towards those ADA improvements. And then after those improvements are made, then the building would be accessible to the public. And the trash enclosure is just a standard requirement that we require of any facility, any business that's opening up, any civic organization that's opening to the public.
I know we approved this a year ago, so they have not been in business. I mean, have not been open to the,
No, they have been making improvements to the building as well. There were some other requirements as part of the CUP that were required for the building, like electrical panel upgrades, those kinds of things. And so they've been working on those items. And they have not been opened for the purpose of a youth center.
and then because the city is funding this program, are we going to provide transparency in regards to how many students are attending? Are we going to be collecting a a sheet stating this is what the monies have been going to? Just kind of some transparency because it is public funds. And I think the citizens deserve that.
Absolutely. So the reason that the council, if you might recall, requested this MOU to be adopted before the funding is dispersed is to incorporate reporting requirements from both the Legacy Youth Center and the Boys and Girls Club. And so we recently received the Boys and Girls Club report, and if this is adopted, then at the end of the fiscal year, the Legacy Youth Center would be required to provide a report, an end of year report for the use of the funds.
That's it for me. Thank you.
Item C.
Oh, I had a question
Okay,
on,
back to item B.
I wasn't gonna ask, but I am gonna ask now. Do you know when the last quote was received for this parking lot modification and the trash enclosure?
I believe that's a fairly recent quote
Okay.
within the last week or so.
They have enough money because, things have gone up and there's a labor shortage, there's supply chain issues. I want to make sure that this is going to be enough money. And then just one clarification, because they have not been in operation all of this time, then the only reporting requirement that will happen will be what happened with this money. Did they spend it on this items? Because we're not going to have students. Fiscal year is almost over. Students are going to be there. So they're not going to have that reporting. It's just going to be the reporting on what happened with this funds.
That's
these funds,
correct.
Correct?
Mhm.
Okay. Thank
Thank you.
Else? Item C, check register.
you. 79432, Surveillance Integration, Inc., Video Security Camera Systems. And it says refresh service of equipment for $32,244.65. What is that for?
Acting Chief Garza can address that item.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members, and community members of Selma. Acting Chief Renee Garza. That that check is going to be in regards to our citywide camera system. We have about 67 cameras that we operate throughout the city to keep our city safe and to assist with investigations. And that was the upgrade that council approved, I believe, probably about at 3-4 council meetings ago when the budget revision was brought up to the council. And that's what that payment was for. So we just processed that payment.
How many cameras do we have?
67.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I have one a little farther up the page, a little north of That one, 79409. Pablo Mogel, cleanup 2800 block of T Street. It's not much, but what was the cleanup for?
Deputy City Manager Rob Terry, do you have any information on that item?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Members of the council, Rob Terry, Deputy City Manager. That item was for a dump that had happened in the alleyway, and that had been requested for a cleanup there. And so at this time, our code enforcement officers do not have the ability because of their vehicle to do any of that type of small cleanup of that. So we do have a consultant that we regularly utilize that is a budgeted item annually to address those items in a timely manner, as opposed to allowing the pile to get larger and larger. As we know, that's typically what will happen. The longer that it's there, the larger the pile will get. So we try to act on those as quickly as we possibly can. But that's what that one was. And of course, they attach each one of those to an address. And if need be on those items, if possible, they do charge those items back to a lien on the property if appropriate.
Okay. And is this something that Public Works would have gone out if they had the staffing to clean up and take to the landfill? Or is this something that the city generally goes to a cleanup for?
If it's in the public right of way, then typically Public Works will work with Public Works first to address that item if they have the capacity to do that. And if they can, then they will go out and address it at no direct cost. If it's on private property, that's typically when you're going to see code enforcement going out and trying to work on that item.
Generally speaking, the alleys are the responsibility of the homeowner to keep clear. And so normally they would call a junk removal company. So if we have the staffing and the capacity, we would do it. And as the Deputy City Manager mentioned, we would charge it back to the property owner because property owners are responsible for their half of the alley to keep clear.
Technically private property,
It's
where this-
public property, but within the responsibility of the homeowner.
like an easement.
Correct.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you for that. One more, next page, page 20. 79440 Earl Eugene Wells, property maintenance citation reimbursement. Got his money back. Did that go through the appeals process?
I'm not particularly sure about that. We would have to follow up with our code enforcement. I believe we did have quite a few appeals hearings on citations, so we can confirm.
Okay, thank you for that.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any items they'd like to talk about on the check register? Public? Anybody on Zoom? Sure, come on up.
On the surveillance, Sarah, what was that? What was that amount? I didn't get that amount.
It was 38,000, or is it 36? 36, $244.65.
Okay, and that was for what again?
Video security camera system, refresh service of equipment.
Is that new equipment?
Can you address the
Is
council?
that new equipment or is that just?
I'll ask
to
the city
fix
manager.
Equipment we have? I mean, I'm trying to figure out.
Sure. The surveillance cameras that we have around town, at different locations around town were in need of maintenance. My understanding is that they hadn't been maintained for quite a few years. The software needed to be upgraded in order for our detectives to be able to utilize them effectively. So that was what that expenditure was.
And that's for 30, how many count? 38?
67.
Oh, 67. I'm so sorry. Okay. And then I'm sorry, the other one we were talking about the dump or
Yeah,
what
the
was that?
Cleanup 2800
Cleanup,
block
I'm
of T
sorry.
Street,
What was the amount of that? Rena?
350.
I'm sorry, I'm just distracted. I got a couple things going on. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone on Zoom, on the phone, like to say anything? Okay. Is there a motion to approve items B and C of the consent
I'll make a
calendar?
motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Call the roll, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Cho,
Yes.
Councilmember Mendoza Navarro,
Yes.
Councilmember Guerra,
Yes.
Councilmember Trujillo,
Yes.
Mayor Robertson.
Yes. Then we'll move on to our first public hearing item of the night. It's consideration of an ordinance approving a military equipment use policy pursuant to Assembly Bill 481. Report, please.
Good evening, Mayor, again, and City Council members in the community of Selma. I am Acting Chief Renee Garza of the Selma Police Department. This is the second reading for the Assembly Bill 481 that was signed by Governor Newsom back on September 30th of 2021, which is the military equipment policy. We had a PowerPoint at the last meeting, and the purpose of me coming up here is just for the second reading and just to bring it back to council. And I can give some highlights if you'd like me to, Mayor.
If council has any items they need refreshers on. Okay, this is a public hearing item, so we'll open the hearing to the public. Do any individuals tonight have any questions about this, or would they like to make a comment regarding this military equipment use policy? We have anyone on Zoom or on the phone would like to comment during the public hearing portion of this item? Okay. With that, we will close the public hearing, refer the matter back to council, and ask for comments from the council before we take a motion. I had just one comment after we had this item a couple weeks ago at the last meeting. I heard from someone who said, this is not the greatest thing that the city is doing this kind of broadcasting its list of equipment, assets, military assets, because perhaps the wrong people can see this and see what our strength is. The criminals have the right to remain silent, but the PD doesn't in this case. So I know there's not a lot we can do about it. This came down from the state. But what is your commentary on this in terms of transparency? In a way it's good, in a way it's not so good.
Want to answer, or do you want me to?
I think I'd defer to the city attorney just because this is, I'll be quite honest with you, this has been a sensitive issue in regards into the
So I'm
police
not the
world.
only one that's heard about this. This is a very
It's a pretty
hot
sensitive
button-
issue
hot button
in
issue
regards
law
to,
enforcement.
because we already have a policy. But
Very
I'll
good.
defer to
Okay.
city attorney.
So go ahead and say what you need to say.
Yeah, so you're correct, Mayor. There's not a lot that the city can do because this is required by the state under AB 481. And it was required to post that equipment list.
Manager?
I was just going to add that every other city in California had to do the same thing. So, we're not alone in broadcasting that information, but thank you for the comments.
Thank you. Any other council members have any items they'd like to bring up this time? Thank you, Chief. Is there a motion to approve or deny?
To approve it.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Mendoza Navarro, Mayor Pro Tem Cho,
Yes.
Councilmember Guerra,
Yes.
Councilmember Trujillo,
Yes.
Mayor Robertson.
Yes. Okay, and with that, it's 10 after 7. We've been going at this for a while. Why don't we take a 5-minute break and come back a little before 7:15 for our next public hearing item? All right, thank you for that. With that, we are back in session for item number 3, which is banners and flags on public rights of way and street light poles. If everybody could take their seats, we'll get back to our meeting. All right, we just want to get home before 11 tonight. With that, we will have item 3 now, banners and flags on public rights of way and streetlight poles. Report, please.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, members of the council. This item, as you know, is a continuation of a previous discussion that the council has had with regard to banners and flags on city property, specifically streetlights. And at the last council meeting, the council gave staff direction to propose changes to the existing municipal code that would allow for a single streetlight pole next to the Selma Arts Center to be utilized for commemorative flags or cultural flags that are not typically allowed in other areas of town. And the process that the council outlined for that use would be to allow the community development director to review that application, and if denied, or at his discretion to refer it to the city council. And for a period of, and that flag would not fly for longer than 10 days, which was council's direction. And nothing with obscene material pursuant to section 311 of the California Penal Code would be allowed. And we also added language that with regard to multiple applications received for the same month, that the application that's received first, and those applications would be timestamped, would be the one that gets considered for approval first. And depending on the outcome of that approval, then the next application could be also reviewed. But that's essentially the extent of the changes that staff is proposing to the municipal code pursuant to council's direction. And what the next step would be is to hold the public hearing and for council to adopt the ordinance, which would take 30 days to take effect.
Thank you for that. Council have any questions before we open up this hearing to the public?
Mayor, I have a, not a question, but I have just a statement. I just like to make it clear that, I voted no. And the reason why I voted no is because I believe that any property from the city of Selma should only be waving the United States flag or California flag or any military flag or any military flags, California, United States, Selma's flags. But, I'm just one vote. And I just want you guys to know that, I'd rather just have our city property fly the American flag or California flag or the Selma's flag or the military's flags. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. And I would just comment on that comment. My understanding of this is that only U.S. military flags would fly from the flag poles. This is about the light post. This is about the post in front of the Arts Center, not an actual flagpole, which is limited by ordinance to flying the U.S. and the California flag as well as military flags. With that, we'll open up the hearing to the public. Does anyone have any comments they would like to make at this time on this item?
Teresa Sala, 1701 Danube Avenue. I spoke at the last meeting and then other things were brought up, so I was not able to give my opinion again because I had already spoken. I don't know if anybody's noticed, but there is no light pole in front of the Art Center. It's in front of RPS Realty or it's in front of Frock's Drugstore. We're trying to get people into the downtown area to promote the downtown area. The previous meetings regarding flags were opposed by quite a few people. So I just feel like you're shooting yourself in the foot by putting a flag that's going to alienate part of the population or part of the citizens of Selma and discourage people from spending time in the downtown area. Again, there is no light pole in front of the art center. You're putting it in front of another business. How do they feel about putting a flag in front of their business and nowhere else in the city, just in front of their business? I would like to see, if you're going to do this, to put this in a more neutral area and probably a more visible area. The corner of McCall and Rose Avenue in the park, it's not the Veterans Plaza, it's the opposite corner. I'm pretty sure there's a light pole there that you can put one flag on. The other thing that I would like to see is the limitation of time to 1 week, 7 days. Most of the commemorations that are, it's, you know, Red Ribbon Week or that kind of thing, most of those are for 1 week. 10 days is kind of like an odd number. This would also free up more time to put a flag up there to 52 weeks instead of 3 times in a month, four times in a month instead of 3 times. Those are just my opinion as far as the flag goes. If you're going to put the flags up, then those are some things that I'd like to see changed in the proposed ordinance.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else have a comment they would like to make at this time?
Leslie Nelson, 2413 Country Club Lane. So my first question is, the proclamation that was put into place last year, does that still stand?
Proclamation.
The Pride proclamation, does that still stand, or is it something that's year to year a vote on?
I believe that would be an annual event if you're looking to have the flag flown in support of that proclamation, City Manager.
Yes, if I recall correctly, that was for a single day or a single month in that particular year. So it would have to be renewed annually.
Okay, so it wasn't, from what I
Best-
understood,
can-
I'm sorry, for
President,
what I
know asked
understood,
it.
the proclamation was for our city recognizing the LGBTQ plus community as a whole, not just for a month.
I don't remember voting on that on a perpetual basis.
Okay,
remember
I just
voting
thought,
on
yeah,
that
I just,
for one time. So
Okay.
in my opinion, it would be, you would bring it back and you would start over again for this year.
okay. All right, thank you.
Anyone else have a comment at this time? Do we have anyone on Zoom or on the phone who'd like to make a comment on this topic?
Reminder to the callers that we see online, please use your raise your hand feature and we will add you to the meeting.
Okay, with that, we'll bring the matter back. We will close the public hearing and bring the item to the council for council discussion at this time. This is pretty thoroughly discussed a couple weeks ago. And the only question I had was, what about the text in here designating the Veterans Park and Whitson as veterans only, as reserved for the veterans flags? Because I thought we had agreed on that in the banners. And also, what about limiting Second Street and High Street light posts to Rotary and Chamber events? Because that's been grandfathered in along with holiday banners. So this just doesn't spell that out.
Correct, Mayor, and those items are already in the existing ordinance. So street light, it doesn't say specifically Second Street and High Street and Tucker, but it does say that those types of flags and banners, the chamber events and military type of commemorative flags and banners are permitted, are exempt from the rules prohibiting those types of flags and banners.
If someone wanted to fly their flag though in, say in the Veterans Park, and it was like a holiday flag, what would happen there? Would that be permitted?
Well, that would be at the discretion of the city, and it would not be permitted under the current rules.
Right, because that section would only allow military flags. Is that correct? In that area, as well as Whitson with these new
Essentially
Military
any
banners.
area. And I think the Whitson and downtown areas were approved specifically in a different action that the council took for military banners. And so those have already been designated for that purpose through that specific action that was considered by council.
Okay, I didn't
Yeah.
know there was exclusivity there. I knew they were permitted for that use, but I
Mhm.
didn't know it was an exclusive use. You're saying it's
Right.
exclusively for the
It's-
military banners.
It's not exclusively for the military banners. It's for any purpose that's exempt as per the municipal code, including military banners or commemorative flags that are spelled out in the code, correct?
I just think that there are a lot of veterans who regard that area as sacred in the Veterans Park and see it as a great start with our Veterans Park, and hopefully it'll
Yeah.
continue moving on. And that would also include the McCall and Rose area as well as reserved for the veterans.
And yes, any request to put anything other than those types of permitted flags and banners would have to come back to council for consideration. So those are not approved by right.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. With that, we'll bring it back to council. Does council have a comment?
On this art center, don't they have?
Oh,
I rem-
on the wings, don't they have,
Yeah,
they
that's
have
what
attachment
I
holders?
thought that was where we were gonna put it.
That's where I thought so too.
So, I
And
mean,
those
it
aren't in front
wasn't
of a
even,
business.
I didn't even think there was a flag, I mean, not the light pole, because the way I pictured it last year, it was more than just one. It's just basically two of them was at the art center first. That's what I saw. And I thought that was where we were going back to.
The direction given to staff was to allow it on the street light pole, but we can, the council can adopt the ordinance with that revision to say not on the street light pole, but on the attachment on the art center building itself.
I think that was the tenor of the discussion at the last meeting. That was where the majority of the council landed on allowing such a flag to be at the Arts Center.
I think the street light post was specifically mentioned as where it would be. And so with the language that was incorporated into this text amendment was the post that's nearest to the building.
Or just
Yeah.
limit it to the art center.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Sure, if you want to make a motion.
I'll make a motion that we do the pride flags around the art center.
I think it could be any flag, right? Any
Temporary, non-commercial sign.
Any temporary, non-commercial flag.
Up to our decision.
So Mayor Pro Tem, are you making a motion to conduct the second reading, waive it, and introduce or adopt the ordinance with that revision that you just mentioned?
With that, I'll make a second to that. And with a first and a second on the floor, we can have just another discussion. And I quite frankly have not heard a lot of opposition. I've heard some opposition, but for a lot of people, there have been even more people who might be opposed. There have been people who are supportive of civil rights and people having their viewpoints respected. So we honor our veterans. We honor all people in Selma, and that's why I'm really proud to be part of Selma, where we honor everyone, a diversity of people. And with that, I will ask for the roll call.
Yes.
Mayor Robertson,
Yes.
Councilmember Guerra,
Yes.
Councilmember Mendoza Navarro.
No.
Councilmember Trujillo.
No.
Passes. That we'll move on to item 4, request to continue public hearing to consider zone text amendment ZTA 2021-0010 and associated actions. Report, please.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. Rob Terry, Deputy City Manager. The item before us today has previously been spoken about at multiple council meetings back in November 15th of 2021. Council had given staff direction to meet with the various stakeholder groups or billboard companies and to have conversations with them about some potential text amendments to our municipal code. Staff over the last several months has engaged in those conversations with stakeholders, had sent out an appropriate public hearing notice for tonight's meeting to introduce that zone text amendment. However, after those notices had gone out, we did receive some additional feedback from one of the stakeholders that we felt was very significant, and we wanted to make sure did have the appropriate amount of time given to it, and it being considered before it came back for council. As a result of that, the recommendation that staff is bringing forward tonight is a request for council to continue the hearing to the next council meeting to give us the opportunity to have those discussions and then come back to council at that time with the appropriate amount of feedback given. So that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Does council have any questions for Deputy City Manager Terry at this time?
Have a comment, and I can't remember because it's been a while since we did this, but I thought we had voted not to approve it, and then if they wanted to come back, then they had to appeal it. That's what I vaguely remember. So I don't know if this is giving you guys enough time to, research that, but I thought that they had to reintroduce what I remember.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, council member. And that is part of the discussion that we will be having before the next council meeting, and be prepared to ensure that we have the appropriate history understood and being presented to council, along with any proposed text amendments or timeline that may be associated with those as appropriate.
We need a vote. to
You do.
continue
It would be a motion to continue it to May 16, 2022.
to Open the public hearing.
I'll make a motion.
Not the public would have the opportunity to comment on the May 16th date.
Okay, is there anyone in the public who would like to comment on continuing this item until the May 16th council date? That will bring the matter back to council, and I believe there's a motion on the floor from Councilman Trujillo. Is there a second? Is there a second to continue this public hearing? I'll make the second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Trujillo,
Yes.
Mayor Robertson,
Yes.
Councilmember Guerra,
Yes.
Councilmember Mendoza Navarro, Mayor Pro Tem Cho.
Yes.
Then we'll move on to the consideration of a memorandum of understanding with Yanes Construction regarding the donation of a 10-acre park site.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Rob Terry, Deputy City Manager. The item before us tonight is a memorandum of understanding between the city and Yanes Construction, who is currently looking at donating 10 acres of land for a community park. They are currently going through their property acquisition, their site planning process for a single-family subdivision on the southwest corner of Blaine Avenue and Thompson Avenue. Fronting Thompson Avenue at the south end of their proposed development, the owner is looking to donate 10 acres of their total area there in order for the placement of this park. There has been conversations about this, of course, in the past. What we are looking to do today is to simply have an MOU in place that is going to establish some of the details associated with timing, the roles, contributions, and responsibilities of the owner or contractor and the city concerning the donation and ultimate development of the park site. However, I do want to point out that any specifics, including items such as park design, subdivision improvement agreements, any type of reimbursement agreements, anything approving the actual adjacent housing development site, and any other agreements that would be required by partner agencies, which you might see, such as Consolidated Irrigation District, given the fact that a portion of this 10 acres does have a CID canal located on it right now. All such items would go before appropriately to Planning Commission and or City Council. So the only item that we're asking City Council to consider at this time is the memorandum of understanding between Yanes and the city to really give the developer that assurance of they know exactly what the city's thought process is, and we know exactly what their thought process is moving forward during this donation period. There is a graphic that shows where the that was attached there. So you can see that 10-acre site facing off of Thompson Avenue. And of course, the draft MOU is also attached for your consideration. That concludes my report. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Rob, by any chance, do you have it on video where you can put it up so that we can see exactly where this location is?
That's not something that I had prepared. Reina, is that something you could pull up on Google Earth quickly? Earth.google.com. You're welcome.
It's 393-17003.
Now, I don't know if Google Earth will allow you to query based upon APN or not. Yeah, I don't think so. So if you just scroll a little to the south. Right about the middle of the screen right now, if you want to zoom in. See the basin right there. Sorry, if I had a laser pointer, I'd get a little more specific on it, but you can see the CID canal that comes down and then goes adjacent to Thompson Avenue. So,
Thompson.
yep, I'll step right over here so you guys can get a little closer look. It's this 10 acres right up here. Correct, that is correct.
Right now, this is unimproved land.
That is correct.
No wells on it. There's nothing, just a canal just going through it. Or
Right now, it
going
does
south.
have part of the CID canal on it. This particular 10 acres does not have any type of ag well or anything of that nature on it, although other areas of the development do have some of that infrastructure that will be dealt with the developer as they develop the site.
The part in the city limits.
Yes, will it be in the city limits? Yes, correct. Not currently,
Oh,
but
they
of course
haven't.
it will be. It's currently within our SOI, but not within the city limits, so it will go through an annexation process.
Is that why the time limit's 3 years? Because there's an additional time to
That is correct.
get it annexed.
Right, right. And that aligns with the performance period of the grant.
Speaking of the grant, Deputy City Manager, has the grant been extended? The timeline for the receipt? I know we were looking at 2024. Has that been extended to 2025?
I'll defer to the city manager on that one because those conversations predate my time.
Sure. Yeah, we haven't received official confirmation. All the conversations we've had with the state is that they fully expect the legislature to approve that extension.
But the legislature has to approve it.
Yeah, and their expected timeline is around June for that confirmation.
This June?
This June, correct.
They'll be voting on it in June.
Yes.
Thank you for that. And if they vote no, that'd be cutting it pretty close because it'd be, or is there any? No. Well, but it seems like they will be extending it. It seems more than likely. Have you heard anything to that effect?
Everything I've heard is that it is they fully expect it to be extended. Any similar requests in the past that have gone for extension of this type of thing have all been approved.
The city hold on to that 4.5 million grant.
Right.
Okay.
Rob, just quickly,
Yes.
Giannis did state that this would be like was it 3 phases? Is what he stated?
Three phases is what their current plan is. That is
Okay.
correct. And so and again, this is preliminary at this point. There has not been an official submittal of any kind, but the conversations they had was that they anticipate 3 phases and that the phases to the north of the proposed park site would be phase 1 and 2, and then to the west side of the park would be phase 3. And we do have a representative online tonight from Yanez Construction if council is interested in asking them any questions.
A public hearing item. Oh, okay, this is our first regular business item, so this is not a public hearing, but we would love to hear from the public. If anyone would like to make a comment at this time, would you please step up? Do we have anyone on the phone or on Zoom who would like to make a comment about the donation of a 10-acre tract for the new park from the city? That will bring it back to council. So this is kind of the starting point, and there are a lot of contingencies for this to move forward, like getting the grant, keeping the grant in force. Yanez is not necessarily guaranteeing that they'll do the project in the first place, but if they do, I guess what I'm getting at is the the benefit to Yanez is not just doing a good thing for the city, but also in the kids of the city for green space. But what is in it for Yanez? What do they get out of this, donating the park space?
Well, my understanding from the donation, from speaking to the representatives of Giannis Construction is, first of all, they want to make sure that the city is able to provide park space to the community, but also in a location that is accessible to as many people in the community as possible. And certainly the fact that they have a housing subdivision project surrounding this site will help with their project as well. And they're also part of the MOU. The understanding is that they will also be able to take advantage of fee credits that would go towards any public improvements that they would be required to make as part of that subdivision development. I think it's over 160 homes that they're looking to build. And it's important to note that in this MOU, there's a clause that says that regardless of whether the development of the park happens or not, the city will retain ownership of the parcel. So they're moving forward with their project. The city is fully planning on moving forward with our project, but if that doesn't happen, then we retain ownership and we can do other things with it.
Typically, it's just an MOU, just to show that we're in partnership.
In good faith, correct.
Yeah. Do they actually own the land yet? Does Yanez own this land?
They're in escrow.
Yeah, they're
Sorry.
currently in, that's okay. They're currently in escrow right now, going through that process. And that's why some of the language within the MOU also acknowledges the fact that we understand that they are going through that process right now. This is really to establish good faith between the city and between Yanez to ensure that we're doing all we can to be on the same page of understanding. And as we're moving items forward, to be doing that together.
But legally, it doesn't encumber either party to following through on it if conditions change.
It does not. If certain items do not happen as listed within the MOU, it releases parties from certain responsibilities or agreements within the MOU with some of the items, as the city manager had stated, which would remain in place.
Okay.
It is legally binding. I do want to clarify.
Yes,
There is a
absolutely.
clause in there about it being legally binding. So all the parties are still required to meet the conditions of the MOU. There are certain contingencies and spells out what would happen if certain things don't happen, as planned. But by all means, it's legally binding.
Other council members have any questions? Does anyone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Guerra,
Yes.
Councilmember Mendoza Navarro.
Yes.
Councilmember Trujillo,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Cho,
Yes.
Mayor Robertson.
Yes. That will move on to consideration of an agreement addendum with Rincon Consultants for the continuation of on-call professional services for the Community Development Department.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council, Rob Terry, Deputy City Manager. The item before us tonight is for an agreement addendum with Rincon Consultants Incorporated for the continuation of their on-call professional services for services rendered to the Community Development Department. This is an agreement that had already been in place. It is set currently to expire on May 6th of this year. We currently have that one in place for a total of $75,000 within the contract period. The request that we are bringing forward to council at this time is to extend, and again, this is for on-call services as needed. So we're looking to extend this one through the end of the next fiscal year, meaning June 30th of 2023, but reducing the amount to $25,000 that could be utilized in on-call services as needed. I'd like to point out first and foremost that $0 have been spent within this contract within the current fiscal year because this is an on-call as needed contract. This is in place as you have someone that may come in with a larger project, in particular a larger project that requires significant environmental analysis, and you do not have the capacity on staff to handle that item in as timely of a manner. You have an on-call contract where you can immediately turn to that firm that can provide those services without having a large delay in time. I think it's also very important to point out that the costs are recovered by applicants being responsible for what those fees are. So we have this in place to ensure that we can provide the services, but the costs are recaptured through the applicant who of course pays for the services that are required for the city to process the item. With that said, I'm happy to answer any additional questions that you have. Hopefully it's fairly self-explanatory.
Thank you. That will bring the matter back before council. Does council have any questions before we open it up to the public?
Questions I just have, just a quick comment. This was, like that it was very self-explanatory and easy to read. I did have just a couple of things, but city manager did clarify, so
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Anybody in the public want to make a comment, or do they have any questions about this item? Do we have anybody on the line or on Zoom? Anything about the Rincon extension? Okay, bringing the matter back to council. These folks are a large organization, correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Yep.
I know they help the city with the housing, get the city back in compliance with the housing element that was out of compliance for the 2006
Correct.
housing element.
They are also a current consultant working on the zone code update as well. So this is a consultant that the city has worked with multiple times and
They
does
do
have an ongoing
several things
relationship.
for the city at one time. This would
Yes, sir.
be for specific types of projects like environmental reviews, up to 25,000.
Yes, sir. That is correct. And that is 25,000 over the 13.5-month period extension that we're looking for.
And then we're gonna have another contract next for QK. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but that's coming up and they are similar. These two are similar.
They are similar, but I'll be happy to talk about some of the differences in the services that are currently being provided.
We'll get there. Is there a motion to approve or deny the Rincon consultant contract extension?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
Call the roll, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Cho,
Yes.
Councilmember Mendoza Navarro, Councilmember Guerra,
Yes.
Councilmember Trujillo,
Yes,
Mayor Robertson.
Yes. Item 7, consideration of agreement addendum number 3 with QK for the continuation of on-call professional services for the Community Development Department.
Thank you very much, Mayor, members of council. Rob Terry, Deputy City Manager, still stuck with me on this item here. I know it feels like the Rob Terry show. My apologies. The item that we're looking at here is a similar extension as far as its timing. We are also approaching council here looking for an extension to take this through June 30th of 2023 with QK. QK, while they also provide the type of specialized planning and environmental services that Rincon provides, QK also, the major difference there is that they act as our on-site and our day-to-day planning consultant. So you'll note that the amount that's being requested here, of course, is considerably larger than that because of their very active and consistent presence that they have here. It's similar to Rincon in the way that many of those costs are recaptured. You do have much of the costs that go forward with QK here that are recaptured, but of course, because they do assist more with some staff related items, it is not uncommon for the items that they are charging for, of course, to go beyond something that might be recaptured through a straight application. So I want to make sure that we're very honest and open with that toward council. All that stated, moving forward, our intent is to still recruit full-time planners that will be City of Selma employees and to phase out as much consultant work as possible over that time. And so you will see that some of the costs here that are even being requested here as we move throughout the year, we will be looking to transition those items to that full-time staff. We certainly do need to have some overlap between the day-to-day consultants that have been working here and any full-time staff that we do bring on to ensure that you have that very cohesive type of transition. The new staff understands history. They don't just have projects that are dropped in their lap and then unfortunately have instances of miscommunication or not appropriate project management. So we will have some overlap between those costs, but the goal is still to minimize as much of those consultant services that are required for your day-to-day type of activities as you possibly can. I think the other thing that's very important to point out is that any extension beyond this, and this also applies to the Rincon item as well, and to any of the planning consultant contracts that we're currently in, Any other extension, we would actually at that time go out for another RFP and open it up again for additional firms to come in and propose if there is an ongoing need that we're going to have there. Say, for instance, if filling a full-time planning position has not been able to come together as quickly as we hoped, or we're having a hard time with the recruitment and we need to extend beyond this period, we would go out to an RFP and go through that process. And then of course, bring the recommendation for a firm or firms at the appropriate time to council for your consideration. So this would be the last type of extension that you would be seeing for these services here. I believe that covers all of the main points that we have here. 13.5-month extension, the $180,000 is what we're looking for on that one. And again, the larger cost because of the more presence that we have with QK. City Manager, is there anything else that you'd like to add to that item?
No, great job, Deputy City Manager.
Thank you. That concludes my presentation. Happy to answer any questions that you have.
Does council have any questions for Deputy City Manager Terry?
My question about the RFP.
Okay.
So,
On here tonight? Like to say anything at this point or ask a question? Anyone on the line or on Zoom? So here's why I think it's a problem, not to have actual people, that you associate with the departments that people know. Like we had Brian Hemby for years, who was a planner. Everybody knew that was Brian. He went to Brian for the planning. And he retired, and it has been really hard to find someone to replace that. And in the meantime, we've had all of these consultants. The same thing with the park. When we wanted a park, we wanted a regional park, and our first quote was somewhere around 7 million. Then it's 9, then it's 16, then it's 28. If I just can't help think. And there are all these consultants telling us this. If we would have had somebody on staff who kind of knew their way around, kind of like you two, we would have been able to have some costs dialed in earlier before we went on that kind of wild goose chase. Unfortunately, now we have to come back and that regional park, which is a great idea, a master plan community, and a great public-private partnership example. We just have to find the funding for that. And in the meantime, there was a lot of time that went into that, and the cost just kept escalating and escalating. And we're up here on council to represent the people and to spend the money wisely for the really important things like public safety and this new construction and this infrastructure. And when we don't have that, when we don't have the continuity, when we have these contracts with people who are great firms, Rincon's a great company, QK's a great company, but the people change. People change. They come in and they go out. And quite frankly, they don't know Selma. They're doing it as their job. But at the end of the day, I don't know how many leave and actually think about, hey, what's going on with Selma tonight? But the people you have that work here, that you associate with the job, that that you trust, to me, those are people that get the job done. Those are people that come to the council. Those are people that put themselves out there and really give the extra effort and give us the information that we need. So we're all working as a team. So that's my 2 cents on why I think it's important and why I echo and completely support your statement that you're both looking for full-time planning personnel and engineering personnel. I think that's really, really important. And I think it applies to all departments in the city. We've been talking about finance tonight. It's really important to get a finance director and someone else in finance. These are areas that I think we really need to get to, not to get off topic. So we'll get back on this QK, but I definitely echo the need, the urgency to find people who are full-time.
Thank you, Mayor. I think it is important to note that we do have an active recruitment open right now for an associate planner. So we're not planning on doing it. We're actually in the middle of doing it right now. And hopefully that affirms that commitment and understanding that we have from council and the desire for you to see that full-time consistent staff.
Right. And I believe you both have planning backgrounds. So that's really important too. So thank you. All right. Any other comments at this time? Is there a motion? Is that to approve? Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Mendoza Navarro,
Yes.
Yes.
Councilmember Trujillo,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Cho,
Yes.
Mayor Robertson.
Yes. Last item is going to be, thank you, Deputy City Manager Terry. Drawing for one fireworks permit. City Clerk, I believe, has the names for the organizations that have submitted their interest cards.
Thank you, Mayor Robertson. Yes, so the city currently has 9 groups that were approved by the city. The list of groups are placed on the agenda, and I can read them out loud if you'd like. But I think the most important inquiry that is on everyone's mind are the 4 organizations that have submitted interest cards and would like to be placed into the drawing. And as it's getting late, I think that's the more interesting part of the meeting that we want to get to.
Sounds good. Go for it.
And so in the drawing, we have the Selma Firefighters Association, Antakia Ministries, Selma High School Football, Valley Life Community Church. And at the beginning of the meeting, we discussed that outgoing Recreation Director Michael Kirshner will be pulling 2 names. The first one is going to be the winner, and the second one is going to be an alternate.
Big moment. And the winner is. 2 will love you, 2 will hate you.
Valley Life Community Church.
So Valley Life Community Church will be contacted. So they have been allocated as the 10th fireworks booth. And then we're going to pull an alternate in case one of the 10 something comes up with them. And that person is?
Antiquia Ministries.
Okay, thank you so much.
All right, thanks for that drawing. And congratulations to the winner and the alternate. All right, that we will move on to departmental reports, City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Just a couple of quick updates. You might have seen, and I sent an email to the council with regard to the chief of police recruitment, which was posted on Friday. So we are going to be conducting that throughout the month of May. May 30th, I believe, is the filing deadline. And then just a quick update as far as the EIFD. So on Wednesday, will be heading up to Sacramento in the morning to attend a legislative committee hearing and speak on behalf of Selma on AB 2780, which is Assemblyman Joaquin Arambula's effort to pass legislation through that would allow the city of Selma specifically, this bill is specific to Selma, to form an EIFD. And so I will have 2 minutes to speak to the legislative committee, and hopefully they approve this bill to be considered by the full legislature. But I'm very hopeful, and I thank Chris Com for their efforts in moving this through, and especially Dr. Joaquin Arambula's efforts on this. It's been extremely great working with this office, and we hope for the best.
Good luck on that. Looking forward to hearing good news, hopefully. Okay, City Attorney Lerner.
Nothing to report, Mayor and Council.
Thank you. Deputy City Manager Terry.
I know I speak loud, but apparently not that loud. Thank you very much, Mayor, members of the council. It is my absolute pleasure to introduce you to our new staff member. So this is our new economic development analyst, Amy Smart. I think that you are going to find that her last name is perfectly suited for her. She is an excellent, energetic person with great background and experience, and I think is really going to bring just some more excellent tools to the tool belt of Selma. So Amy, I'm going to hand this microphone over to you, but you have to keep yourself controlled here, okay? Okay.
All right, you might want to put the timer up for 3 minutes because I've been known to talk. So yes, my name is Amy Smart, and I'm very excited to be here. Tomorrow will mark 2 weeks since I have started. And first and foremost, I would like to thank the mayor and council for the opportunity and for the emphasis on economic development. I think one of the things that people think when they think economic development is just about business, but really economic development is what drives our community. And we need those dollars, and it supports the rest of the priorities that you guys have outlined. And I would also like to thank city staff. I've spent the last 2 weeks touring this city and getting just an idea of how the different departments view the city, the lenses that they see. It's very important for me to understand understand the full history of this community if we're going to help move this train forward. So again, thank you to everybody. I'm excited to be here. You guys will see me all over town, just bragging about the wonderful things that we have to offer, and I'm really looking forward to the future. So are there any questions for me?
Does council have any questions for Amy at this point?
Want to say welcome, Amy.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the energy you bring. Looking forward to many great things.
Thank you so much.
That's all I have to report, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy City Manager. Right. We have a report from our Acting Finance Director. We already heard it earlier, didn't we? Thank you. Public Works Director Shane Farrell.
Pretty hard to follow Amy's little spiel right there. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. First of all, I want to thank you guys for this opportunity I've had. It's been an honor. The tattoo guy was emotional. Anyways, thank you to this community for all the support. I made a commitment to the community. Thanks to my staff, Sylvia behind the scenes, couldn't do it without her. Thanks to all the men and women at Public Works, just all city staff in general. Everybody's that's backed me and helped me. That's what Selma's all about. We're a team. I'm not going anywhere. I'm gonna stay here and fight for what's right. And that's all I can do. Like Chris Brown said, I love Selma, and I truly do. I love Selma. Everything happens for a reason, and let's move forward and let's keep the goals in mind. And again, I just want to thank you guys for this opportunity, and it's been very good. And I shall return. Thank you.
For that report. Fire Chief Peterson, any report? Acting Police Chief Garza? Thank you, sir. Recreation Director Mike Kirschner.
Mayor Robertson, members of the City Council, I just want to remind you tomorrow night at Fresno Council of Governments is holding their annual transportation needs and improvements, and this is for the whole county. And they rotate these throughout each year. So Kerwin and Selma.
Wednesday night?
Tomorrow night, Tuesday, May 3rd, 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. at the Senior Center. And so Kerman, Selma this year, and then they actually have 2 Zooms this year, which is new. So if you can attend.
And then at that meeting, I've attended a few in the past, and you can request items to be put on the long-term transportation plan. Is that right? For the next Measure C funding? Is that one of the, so I remember we had our last one at the Senior Center. And what, can you detail some of the lists, some of the items we could have, put some input on?
You may know, yeah.
Right. Having been a former COG staff member, I think I can probably let you know. So this one is actually going to be specific to the regional transportation plan. Then the Measure C reauthorization process that is going through right now, while of course the RTP items go into that as well, it is not the same exact list. So I would want to make sure that the council understood that. We do have the 4 projects that have been higher priorities for Selma for many, many years that we, of course, are going to make sure are continued to be highlighted as high priority projects for the community and included, I should say, remain within the RTP because they're already in the RTP. Items like Floral 99 Interchange, Dinuba Avenue, Mountain View, right? So those are going to remain as items that we're going to really highlight as continual needs there, and then also fight for to be in the Measure C reauthorization listing and projects as well.
Will there be anything on Stillman by any chance? Widening of Stillman? Would that be an opportunity to bring that in?
That should already be in the RTP.
No, Stillman was not included in the RTP because that conversation started after the RTP was already developed. And I don't think it would be considered enough of a regional project to really make it into that plan.
Yeah, that can be the biggest challenge, is really pointing to how it's regional in nature.
Right.
But where we're located in the county, we do, I think, have some opportunities to really point to regional in nature, even though it might not actually be the Fresno region. You know, something like a Mountain View, I think would be a really good example of that, where you can say, well, that matters a lot to Tulare. So why don't we start working with TCAG and Fresno COG together to see how we can fund these type of items, right?
And that was a discussion a few years ago, and it always seems to be coming around with the development there. You know, as long as all the counties fund at the same time, everybody puts their money in the pot too.
Right, the easy part, right?
Not the meeting part. Didn't mean to interrupt the Parks and Community Services Director. So that's tomorrow night at Senior Center, 5 to 7. Okay, thank you for that. Council reports, Councilmember Mendoza Navarro.
Had a couple things. Ended the EDC, which is Economic Development Corporation, their 2022 Real Estate Forecast Conference, and I attended with city manager, and a couple times I looked over and I could literally see his head spinning because there was a lot of information that they talked about, and it was good to see that you worked with a lot of the people at ED, or you that's where you came from, right? And one of the things that was echoed throughout the conference had to do with the different businesses or the different areas that are basically like having the same impact. You know, they're having job shortages, or not job shortages, but really struggling in hiring staff throughout the industries. The supply chain is also, not helping any, but there's really also not any vacant housing, apartments, businesses, office space, like it's all the way around. So that was one of the things that, they did echo, and so, how do we work together? And basically it's, and working with different, private, public entities, and having a lot of those partnerships. I did get to meet with a couple of developers. City manager and I met with Cliff Titillion and Jerry Farney, which I apologize to them for taking me a little while to meet with them, but it was actually a really good meeting. I saw a whole different perspective or outlook for Mr. Titillion, and so I really grasped everything that he had to say. And so now I've had the opportunity to talk to a lot of our local developers, and I'm really excited for everything that they bring to Selma and that they want to continue bringing. The other is I did attend for the first time the Sikh parade, and it was a really nice event. I didn't realize how big it was. It was a really big event, and yeah, there were a lot of people there. It was really eye-opening because I didn't realize how big the Sikh community was. But I'm really, really excited, and I can't wait till next year's. And then next week I'll be attending the League of Cities Conference in Sacramento. And then on a couple of notes, I wanted to say thank you for, putting that EIFD. I know that was one of my, that was number 2 on my priorities. Last year on the goals and priorities was to clean up whatever was preventing us from moving forward. As a city, I know that that was something that was bottlenecked for many years, for whatever decisions were made way back then. But now I'm glad that, we're on board to getting that cleaned up. And so one of the things that I really liked, Amy, what you just said about viewing things through, the different lenses. And so one of the things that, it just made me reflect that the lens up here is different than the lens that we see as a citizen. A lot of the times, the lenses as citizens, we see, oh, they're making certain decisions, or they're doing this, or they're doing that. But it's a different lens to be up here. It's a different perspective that you have to see things through. And not every decision is going to be liked. Not every decision is going to be supported. But there's other things. I would always tell my kids, there's always 3 sides to a story. There's your side, their side, that side, your brother's side, your sister's side, and then somewhere in the middle, there's the truth. And so I feel that up here, we only see what's our lens, and out there as citizens, we only see what's that lens, but we don't see the three sides of the truth. So I just wanted to make that, and, again, thank you for that and welcome.
Thank you. Councilmember Trujillo?
I just want to say that I attended the Sikh parade also, and other than that, I'm a little bit pushed for time, so I have nothing else, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Kara?
Okay, I was a little busy. I did attend the United Health Center Gala. They raised about $50,000 that night for the Robert Schenkerman Foundation, and this awards scholarships for medical students. And it was very near and dear to our heart because Dr. Schenkerman did die from COVID, treating the patients that he loved treating. So that's real special. The other thing, I did attend the Sikh parade. Again, this was not my first time. I've been attending it several years now. And I love that I call my Sikh family because they dress me in my beautiful dress that they bring to me every year. And it's very, very special. And again, that's very near and dear to my heart. We were presented with plaques and they thanked the entire council, our city manager, our deputy city manager, and our police chief or acting chief, and Rob, our chief, fire chief. Well, I think you weren't there, but yeah, we'll just say you were there. But, they thanked everybody, and just by their love and care, I mean, we heard it tonight, how thankful they are. And to feed 10,000 people that day, I mean, it was amazing. And we're so thankful to have the Sikh community that we have because they're loving people. I too attended a meeting with the city manager, the mayor, and the two developers, the Farneys and Mr. Tatelian, to go over the projects that we still have for Selma Grove. That's not going away at all. I mean, those are developments that are still happening. And it's just, we're just so prized how many developers are here right now and want to invest in Selma, So we've talked about this in a few years. This city is going to be amazing. This city is going to be a whole different dynamic with so many homes, so many commercial buildings, businesses. And again, I'm hoping for my mall, but I'm wishful thinking. I think it'll happen. So it's great time. I also took a tour last week with city manager and our deputy city manager with another construction or another developer, which is the Honest Construction that we spoke about tonight. And they took us through different cities where we were able to see his construction work, his homes. And he was so proud. And I think we were all just at awe because of these homes. He showed us standard homes, he showed us high-end homes, and they were beautiful, beautiful homes. So we're really excited. I'm excited. In fact, we were like, we want this home, it was beautiful, nice. And in fact, I was telling our city manager that I want my husband to take a drive just so we can see these homes. And I said, we'll eat they took us to a little restaurant there called the Runaway. And it was dynamic. But, I never thought Woodlake, honestly, I really never been there, but it was a really nice community. And what he did there was amazing. So I'm excited. The other thing, I did attend the Business Improvement Development open house, is where I met our new Miss Amy Smart, which was dynamic because I thought, wow, she's up and running and wanting to get, all these businesses, and she has a great vision for our downtown, and I'm excited to see what she brings to our community. And let's see, and I think that's it for me.
Thank you.
Yep.
Mayor Pro Tem Cho?
Yeah, hi. I'd like to apologize to the Sikh community that I wasn't able to go to the parade. I was at a convention in Morro Bay. But hopefully next year I will be able to attend. I did make it back, but it was so many people that I couldn't, the traffic, and I couldn't even get out there. So I actually ended up by Heartland School and watched the end of the parade. So I saw a little bit of it, but it was amazing to see that many people, and it's good to see, to see a culture that is totally together on it. Okay. It seems like I've been busy. It's like more local stuff. We had a Golden Grad weekend, which is anybody that's had 50 years under their belt. Okay. I was class of 67. I'm sorry, I just told you my age. Pretty old. So usually we have a Friday night, we do get together with our own class. And then on the big one, which is called the Golden Grad, they have it on Saturday at the middle school. There were 412 attendees. These are people that graduate from 50 years on back. And they said actually there was some attendance that was like 70 years graduation. It's amazing this, they do this. See, and before we always say, okay, reunion 10 years, 20 years. After 50, and Selma is the only town I ever heard about it. We do it every year now. So it is a really neat thing. Jennifer Earl was the main person that did take care of this. And so I was really good. And the thing I went to was the Lions Convention in Morro Bay. I'm on our district, and I was really proud to go. Our district, or my Lions district, is from South of Madera to Bakersfield. And the officers this coming year, the district governor, first and second vice district governor, they're all women. So I had to go there to support them because this is the first time ever, I think, in our district for sure. And the lady district governor of next year is a Indian lady. So that was really cool, really good. Let's see. I also attended the top 25 seniors dinner, and that's a banquet. They salute the 25 top seniors of Selma High School. The grade point ranged from 4.28 to 4.0. The bottom is 4.0. So you have to be really proud of these, kids that have achieved so well on it. So that was really good. And this weekend I did go to the Asian Fest that was at Fresno City College. Actually, my brother started that about 20 something years ago. He started it when he became a professor. He got a proclamation. He was really surprised, and they named it John Cho Day that day. So I was pretty proud of him. So I think, we should say there's some great people come out of our little town. So we should all be proud. Okay, thank you.
I attended that Business Improvement District, the open house, attended the Negerkirtan Festival, the Sikh Parade, which was nice after 2 years of being off due to COVID. I attended the Congressman Jim Costa's recognition lunch at the Latino Water Coalition meeting. We had the city manager and the acting police chief there, Councilmember Guerra. And they had I also met with Jerry Farney and Cliff Tutelian to discuss development issues and public-private partnerships and the importance of communication, which I think is really, really important in the name of the game with the development community, and getting down to getting everything in writing. In terms of right and wrong, yeah, there are people that do see things, have greater information perhaps about the issues, but there's no lens for right and wrong. There's right and there's wrong. And you're either, you know it because your conscience tells you, your gut tells you what's right and what's wrong. I also went to COG, attended the COG meeting Thursday night, and there was the agenda item on the TOD funding this year, the transit-oriented development funding. So Fowler received, this is something, you used to just go to the big cities, used to just go to Fresno or Clovis, and it got opened up a few years back. Rob, you may have been there when that opened up. And Selma, the last 2 of the 3 years, Last year, the city got a grant for a downtown revitalization plan. And then not the year before that, but the year before that, the city got money to change the bus station around for the new police station. This year, Kingsburg received $396,000 for their bike paths. City of Fowler received $143,760 for their bike paths. And Selma, we didn't actually turn in anything this year. So hopefully next year we will take a look at that, because I know we can use bike infrastructure and a bike path, especially with the old 99 being a little sketchy in terms of what they're providing for the bike path. I just want to say thank you to the city employees who work day in and day out, so dedicated. I'm in awe of what city employees do for our city and really appreciate everything. But most of all, I appreciate all of you people, citizens, because that's my lens. That's what I see things through. I see it as a citizen, and I see it, what we can do for our city rather than doing for ourselves, and doing unto others as we would have other people do as we would have other people do unto us. Just remember that golden rule. I think it's so important. And with that, we will move on to oral communications for the remainder. Does anyone have anything they would like to say before we adjourn for the evening?
Teresa Salas. I'm representing the Kiwanis Club of Greater Selma. At the Raisin Festival, we sponsor a 2-mile fun run. It's a walk run. And we've been doing it for over 25 years. And last year we had to do it virtually because we couldn't get together to run or walk together. And this year we haven't had as many people sign up as we normally have in the past. So we have gone to another virtual run walk. And if anybody's interested in signing up, there's a website called runsignup.com. And then you would look for Jean Paredes Memorial Fun Run. And you can sign up to run, and you do your 2 miles whenever and wherever you want, or you can sign up to give a donation. The proceeds from this event are used to fund scholarships. We do different things each year, but this year the money will go to fund scholarships for our seniors. And the top 25, my grandson was number 6.
For that, and congratulations. Want to speak in the microphone? Anybody else?
Babelo 1701 Dinuba Street. I'd like to thank Shane
Can you
being still being.
address the
Oh,
council,
I'm
sir?
sorry.
Thank you very much.
Bad habit, I have a bad habit. I'm a citizen. Okay, I'd like to thank Shane for the hard work that he did in our community, and he's still part of the team, and he's got a lot of heart. You know, Public Works Department is a difficult department because you handle a lot of people, and sometimes you're short staffed, and you have to sit to the plate and do it yourself. And so far, every Public Works we had in our community have stepped up to the plate all the way down. Shane was one of them. When the crisis hit, rainy or whatever, they're there. I don't care who they are, but they're there. It's not an easy job in that position. You have to be multitask, and you have to be motivated in yourself. And I thank Shane all these years being part of the City of Selma and his people and his staff. And also, I'd like to thank the people, the citizens out here, I'm looking at you guys, citizens out here. And also I'd like to thank one special person that gave Jerry Dyers the beautification for the city of Fresno. And she's in our city ordinance right now, and that's Leslie. Leslie, I thank you for giving Jerry those ideas. Thank you very much. He picked the ball up and ran with them. And I thank her because she started here in Selma for the beautification cleanup, and she is one of the founders of with the group and everything. I thank her very much. And I also thank the staff that works for the city as well. And I always think that we have good citizens in our community. And I always thank the law enforcement, fire and police, because they keep our streets safe and people from injuries and stuff like that. I thank them. And then the staff too, reports. Raina over here, a hardworking person over here as well. She's quiet, don't say too much. But remember the spotlight, girl. But I thank everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else? Anything else to say? Okay. Would they like to say anything?
I do see we have one caller on the line. The caller, as a reminder, please use your raise your hand feature. We will add you to the meeting queue.
Okay. Right.
Mayor, City Council. I just want to extend an invitation for this Thursday, National Day of Prayer. I'd love to see all of you guys come out and join us and just have a good time. We'll be providing some lunch. So at 12 o'clock at Lincoln Park, we'll be meeting there and praying for the whole government, the churches and everyone else. And I thank the Lord for all the participation of everybody that's going to participate. And I'm just looking forward to seeing you guys out there. God bless you guys.
Thank you. All right. Thanks everyone for coming out. Just a quick aside, Rose and I were at Sal's yesterday, talking to somebody at the front and asked him, "Do you follow local politics?" No, not at all, but I'm on the beautification committee with Leslie Nelson and she does a great job. Thank you for that. Appreciate it. All right. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to
We're
adjourn.
adjourned. Thanks, everyone.